You talking to me?
What we've got here is failure to communicate.
You just put it in the right file.
I am serious, and don't call me Shirley.
Oh, hi, Mark.
I'm as mad as hell, and I'm not going to take this anymore!
Gentlemen, you can't fight in here. This is the war room.
I drink your milkshake.
Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of In the Can Movies.
Take 36.
My name's Leo Costello.
And I'm Jared Wiedmeyer.
And today we're going to be talking about the Oscar nominations. They came out. We said last week that we'd be doing a discussion on Star Wars The Last Jedi, but Jared, I guess you just couldn't get the muster up to go and see it, could you?
I was just so uninterested at the idea of it that I literally physically could not buy a ticket. Like, it just couldn't do it. I couldn't do it.
And, you know, I was a little irritated about that at first, but then I was like, you know what? It's been a while since we did our last episode. Everybody's already talked about it. It's the movie. Everybody's already talked. Everybody said everything that's possible to say about that movie. We just be repeating points everybody else has said. So if you want to know our thoughts, you know, it's just basically, we probably have the same opinion I did, is that they just kind of,
I looked it up.
Pooped on the franchise a bit.
Yeah, I guess. Well, the only thing I was interested in was, I guess, like, Kylo becomes Ben and he kisses Rey, and because she's dead, but then he like gives her his life force or some shit. Is that about right?
The biggest issue is that it just feels like this movie and The Last Jedi are just kind of having an argument with each other, and there's no real vision. It's a real mess of a movie, and it's just got corporate fingerprints all over it, and it like pulls every single one of its punches. One thing I'll say real quick is that, spoiler real quick, just for a small moment, is there's a moment where the bad guys capture Chewie and they fly off, and then Rey is like reaching out and she accidentally force lightnings him, and it's like, holy shit, she didn't realize she had this power. And the ship goes down and she thinks she kills Chewie, and it's like the best moment of the movie because I was like, holy shit, there's actual stakes here. Yeah. Something big happened. And the very, like, 2 scenes later, they're like, oh, Chewie's fine. He was in a different ship that was completely off screen. It seemed like they wanted to kill Chewie off, and then they realized that people wouldn't like that, so they wrote him back in. It's just so stupid.
She's like Palpatine's granddaughter, is that right?
It's real
So who's
dumb.
the dad?
Exactly. It's just some guy, I guess, and that means that somebody. It's a mess. So we're not going to be talking about that, but we are going to be talking about the Safdie brothers' Uncut Gems, because it's a movie we've both been looking forward to. It's an indie movie that needs more people to be talking about it, because we're also going to be, the first half of this podcast, we're going to talk about the Oscar nominations, like I said before, and it didn't get a single goddamn nomination. So
fucking ridiculous.
And
there
you know
were
what?
I counted at least 6 to 7 categories where it should have won a nomination, and probably 2 or 3 where it should have won the nomination.
Absolutely. So. And, you know, the Oscar nominations overall this year, I'm fairly okay with. There weren't too many snubs, but, like, Uncut Gems is the only one that didn't get anything that really deserved it. So
Uncut Gems is the biggest snub. And some of it, too, like, I think Us was a bit of a snub.
We'll get into that.
Midsummer could have gotten something. All right.
We'll mention the big snubs, but the biggest one is Uncut Gems, which is why we're going to talk about it after our discussion of the nominations. Normally we do a what we've been watching section, but you just got back from a trip, a birthright trip, right, to Jerusalem and New York. You want to briefly mention how that went?
Yeah. So
you went to New York. That was just additional thing.
Yeah, the birthright trip was to Israel, so I spent 10 days in Israel. I was in Jerusalem for the last half of it. I spent the first half. There was like a lot in the north, and then I went down in the desert, rode a camel. That was cool. I was. Is
it
Tel
bumpy?
Aviv.
Is it uncomfortable? I gotta know.
A camel?
Yeah, to ride it.
So honestly, there's a hump, right? And there's 2 seats. There's the front of the hump, back of the hump. I was in front of the hump. My butt kind of hurt, but The camel is very soft fur. You wouldn't get that. But I almost got bucked off when it like stood up. It was pretty powerful and I almost flew off. It was
Holy cow.
wild. Yeah.
Huh.
But it was great. There was like 40 people on the trip from America. And honestly, like of the 40 people, I like authentically enjoyed the company of about 35 of them, which is a really high ratio for
Wow.
a group that
Yeah.
big. Yeah. So yeah, shout out to my birthright mishpacha, which means family in Hebrew. So yeah, it was a great trip.
Cool. Nice. Well, so I won't spend too much time talking about what I've been watching because you haven't been able to watch that much, and we really want to get through a lot of these nominations. So I guess I'll just mention the ones that I gave like a 4-star review or higher. Is that okay?
Yeah, go for it.
All right. So this didn't get a 4-star, but I have to mention John Mulaney and the Sack Lunch Bunch, John Mulaney's new kids special on Netflix. It's kind of hit or miss, but the segment at the end with Jake Gyllenhaal is worth watching. It's like one of the funniest things I've seen in a while, and Jake Gyllenhaal needs to win an Emmy for it. It's amazing. Just skim to the end if you're not enjoying like the first
bunch.
Yeah, it's a kids special, like a kind of like a Sesame Street kind of thing, just not puppets. It's like a kids comedy special.
Okay.
But it's kind of ironic at the way John Mulaney is. But if you're not enjoying it, just skip to the end for the Jake Gyllenhaal Mr. Music section, and you'll have a laugh riot. It's hilarious. I have to mention one of my favorite movies of this year. It's a Japanese film called Uncut of the Dead. Have you heard of this?
I have. I heard it was like, so what I know of it pretty much, I know what the film poster looks like, and I know that it was kind of in like, it was released in Asia, but it wasn't released here, and there was like a lot of like drama over the distribution of it. That's about as much as I know.
Oh, good. Don't do any more research, because this is definitely a movie you need to go into blind. It's one of the funniest, most original movies I've ever seen. And I can't really say anything about. The only thing I'll say is that the whole movie is one long take, like a real take, no hidden cuts or anything. And it's about like these people who are making a zombie movie, and while the zombie movie is getting made, real zombies start attacking them. And if you're like not into zombies or anything, yeah, exactly. And if you're not into zombies, this is like the perfect movie for you, because it's satirizing kind of the whole zombie trope, but it does something really interesting after the first 40 minutes that I cannot spoil, but it is an absolute must watch. Even if you don't think you're enjoying it, stick through to the 40-minute mark and you won't regret it.
Okay.
1917 is really good. I just saw that one. That one's a one-shot movie too, but it's like fake one-shot. It's kind of edited together, but it's a pretty cool experience. A great war movie, I think. I think it's going to fill a lot of the holes that a lot of people felt was missing in Dunkirk.
Okay.
Pretty cool movie, I think. And then I saw Little Women, and I was not really expecting to like it because I typically don't like period pieces, but I really love Greta Gerwig and all of the actresses that are in that film. And I was actually really moved by it. I've never experienced that story before. I want to see
that so bad.
I've never experienced that story before, and I was like in tears of joy and like tears of sadness throughout almost like the whole thing. I had a very emotional reaction to it, and I really, really loved it. Yeah, it's pretty great. I'm
gonna see that. That and 1917 is the double billing I want to check out next.
Oh, that's a great idea. Yeah, Little Women's like a perfect movie. Greta Gerwig really nailed it. Yeah, okay. I can't think of any flaws with it. I really can't. And one of the Florence Pugh got nominated for an Oscar. She was the main actress in Midsommar, and she is just incredible. I checked out Honeyland, which is the documentary that got nominated for an Oscar.
Yeah, that's on there.
I'll mention it when we get there, but I'll just say briefly that it is really, really incredible, and it's unbelievable the footage they got. It's almost hard to believe it's a documentary, because like the scenes that they got, it's like it follows like the structure of like a movie, and they filmed it over 3 years, and it's just it's absolutely gorgeous too. One of the most gorgeous looking documentaries I've ever seen. It's amazing. And that's about it. That's all like the big like best movies I've seen. There's a couple other ones that I'll mention when we get to them in the nominations, but those are the big ones I really wanted to mention.
Cool. The only big thing I saw since is I saw A Hidden Life. I saw Malik's new movie in theaters.
Nice.
Incredible. It was so good. It's like, it's long. It's 3 hours. So you really got to go in there like, just like, okay, this is going to be like a lot of my time. But it was so beautiful. Yeah, I really recommend seeing it. It's hard. It's a hard movie to talk about because it's so different from a lot of things. But I think it really like, it asks questions about like morality and like what actually doing ethics and like life means, even if it means like not necessarily, changing the world, but just doing the right thing because it's the right thing.
That sounds like a Malik movie for sure.
Exactly. Yeah. It's beautiful. And some of the shots are just like completely awe-inspiring, just like so gorgeous.
That's actually kind of how I felt when I watched Little Women too, because it really, I guess, easy way to put it is I tend to be a little bit cold-hearted, I guess, and I feel like Little Women really showed me like what like love is capable of, like what love looks like and everything.
That is the cutest thing I've ever heard.
I know.
That's amazing.
It really made me, there's like these moments where, sorry, I'm backtracking back to Little Women, but there's these moments where you're just watching these sisters just exist in their house and communicate and like talking over each other. It feels supernatural, and you just feel like really warm with the love that these characters feel for each other. It's pretty amazing. But I can't wait to see The Hidden Life. I have no idea. I'm probably gonna have to wait till it's on streaming or something.
Yeah.
Unfortunately. That's cool though.
Ooh, quick question. Yeah. Also in relation to things that are coming out. Do you have any connections to getting the new Curb season?
I can neither confirm nor deny that, but I will say that I watched the first episode.
Okay.
And it's brilliant, of course. It's amazing. It is so funny.
Tell me no more, but thanks for letting me know you've seen the first episode.
Can I just tease one premise that he uses in the show that's really funny?
Sure. Tease. Yeah.
Yes, I'll tease one little thing. There's a guy that he's really irritated by, and he wants to avoid him, but he has this lunch date with him, and he realizes that the guy hates Donald Trump, so he realizes that putting on a MAGA hat gives him a lot of power, and then obviously he ends up reaping the consequences of wearing that around Los Angeles.
Awesome. All right.
It's so good. Yeah.
I'm ready. I'm so ready.
Yeah. I as long as you mentioned TV shows, I should shout out the show Fleabag. I watched both the seasons of that show, and it's hysterical. If you haven't heard of it, it's really great. You should check it out. Very funny show.
I just finished watching Rami. I actually watched the whole season of something for once. Have you heard of that?
No. Oh wait, that's the it won a Golden Globe.
It's on Hulu. It's like
it's
about
Muslim,
like a Muslim
American
guy living in New Jersey.
Yeah.
It's like sort of balancing the sacred and the secular in his life, and he wants to be a good Muslim, but he also wants to be like a young adult human being. Like, it's good.
Yeah, I should check that out. I really liked that guy's speech when he won the Golden Globe. Like, halfway through the speech, he was like, okay, I can tell you guys haven't seen my show. That was pretty funny.
That is funny.
Yeah. Well, we should dive right away into the Oscar nominations.
Let's do it.
Yeah, so how do you feel about the Oscars just in general? Do you care at all? Do you think the Oscars are important? I'm just curious how invested you are in this.
So I think on a certain level, it's just sort of like a narcissistic, like carnival for them to kind of show off, and it's like totally unimportant in a lot of ways, in that it like is like the Gerwig thing, right? Like Gerwig didn't get nominated for like best director or whatever, and sure, it's like an oversight, but also like she's doing fine. She's made 2 studio movies now that are like doing well, and she's gonna keep on making things. Like it's not like the Oscars is really a vehicle for people to like break out, you know? Like
but
it's a little like it's the wealthiest and the most beautiful coming together for a night to kind of like be a little arrogant and a little like self-serving. And so on the level of like spectacle, I think it's kind of stupid. What I do like about it, especially with like best director and best picture, is its value isn't so much for like the night it happens. It's for like 50 years later, people who are getting into cinema, they can look up and see, okay, this is what's been deemed good then. This is sort of my gateway into a new era.
Yeah, it's
so
like
I think in that way, it's useful.
It's like a time capsule almost.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So like it's useful for like thinking about the kids who will be getting into cinema 50 years from now, you know, and they're like, oh, I wonder like what the 2010s movies is like, and like what are the big movies there, and they can look at these lists and they can see winners, and they can sort of see the shape of what the highest point of the industry was doing. So I think for that it's useful.
I think I think it's important to celebrate cinema, especially for the general audience who tends to like watch the Oscars, you know, to highlight films that maybe they haven't seen before. So I think that's important, but I also know that a lot of the Oscars is kind of bullshit. The voting system is not very sound. A lot of times they're watching movies on their DVDs and they're really not experiencing the full film. And there's a lot of like campaigns that go on that influence who wins and stuff. So there's a lot of political bullshit. But it's still fun to, I think, talk about the nominations and make predictions and things. It's like this is my what is, I almost said Final Fantasy football. This is my fantasy football.
This is my Final Fantasy.
Yeah.
Yeah. I can see where that
it shows how much I know about fantasy football.
I honestly think the like lead up to it though can be more interesting. Like last year, I think I had like 5 or 6 drinks real quick and fell asleep pretty early in the Oscars. Like I don't remember anything. I fell asleep. So like,
well, last year I made predictions.
The actual
on
thing
who would
itself
win.
is long.
Yeah.
You made predictions.
Oh, I was gonna say.
I remember this. I remember that
prediction.
night.
Yeah. Every nomination that I got right, or every nomination that I got wrong, that I predicted wrong, I took a shot of vodka.
You took a shot.
and I ended up taking 10 shots.
Video at the end. Yeah, I remember that video where you were drunk and you were just talking to the screen. I totally remember that.
Yeah, maybe I'll do that again, but this year I feel like it's a lot less predictable in terms of who's gonna win.
Yeah,
but
it's like more likely. Maybe you do like the first 10 or shots and then it's like a beer or something.
Yeah.
After that.
Yeah.
Save yourself.
So yeah. So overall, before we go into the categories, I just want to say as a blanket statement that the Oscars in the long run don't really matter, but it's fun to talk about, and it's good to celebrate good work. So I think it's going to be good.
Yeah.
All right. So let's start with actor in a leading role. We have Antonio Banderas for Pain and Glory, DiCaprio for Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, Adam Driver for Marriage Story, Joaquin Phoenix for Joker, and Jonathan Pryce for The Two Popes.
So I've seen 3 of these 5 movies. I have not seen Pain and Glory, although I really want to, and I haven't seen The Two Popes. Have you seen all of these movies?
I've seen most of the movies on this list, but I have not seen Pain and Glory. This is actually like the 2nd or 3rd year in a row that I saw all of the Best Picture noms before they were announced, which is kind of cool.
Wow, good for
and
you.
Not to humble brag, but I am going to humble brag. Is I made a prediction of what movies would be nominated for Best Picture, and I got them 100% right. I got
motherfucker. That's awesome.
Yep. Well, I predicted 10, because they can do up to 10. But like the 10th one was like the one I thought was least likely, and it was The Two Popes, and that didn't get nominated, so I actually got it right.
Oh,
So
okay.
that should show you that I know what I'm talking about here, man.
All right,
This
those
is
are
my
some
territory.
Some bona fides here.
This is
We've
me,
gotten
Jared.
Expert
This is
alert.
how I win.
We got an expert.
Yeah. So I have on here on my sheet here like who I think should win and who I think will win for all these categories.
Of course.
And for both, I really think after I thought about it, I think Joaquin Phoenix I think is going to take it for Joker.
Yeah.
His performance, like no matter what you think about that movie, it's a very controversial film, very divisive, but everybody agrees that he gave just a killer performance in that movie. Shows a lot of range. And I think he deserves it too. What do you think?
Well, from the ones I've seen, I haven't seen Banderas's or Price's. I think Joaquin Phoenix should win. And I think Joaquin Phoenix will win. I think it's like too juicy to not. But I could also see my dark horse candidate. I think Jonathan Pryce could take it.
Maybe. He did win a Golden Globe, but so did Joaquin. But Joaquin also won a SAG award recently. So I think he's more in the front running. I think The Two Popes is going to be one of those movies that got nominated a bunch of times, but won't win anything. It's such a... It's a fine movie, but it's nothing really more than that.
Do you think the Academy is going to have any gripes with giving the Joker 2 Oscars? Because Heath Ledger won it for The Dark Knight. That's
true. And, I thought about that. And my initial thought was, no, they wouldn't do that. But it's such a strong performance that they can't really deny it. And Joaquin Phoenix's acceptance speech for his SAG award, he mentioned Heath Ledger and he gave thanks to all the other people that were nominated. So it seems like it's in the right climate right now to do that. So
has he ever won? Yeah. Has he ever won an Oscar before, Joaquin?
I think he won for Walk the Line way back then.
Oh, okay.
Before Joaquin Phoenix 2.0. Him coming back from the grave hasn't won an Oscar yet.
Okay.
But yeah, I think it's gonna be him. My big snub for this one is obviously Adam Sandler for Uncut Gems. He's really incredible.
Oh my god. Yeah, he totally deserved it.
Also, I guess I don't know if this would be Willem Dafoe or maybe it was for supporting actor, but he was snubbed, I think, too. It's a shame that he didn't get nominated.
For The Lighthouse?
For Willem Dafoe's performance.
For The Lighthouse.
Yeah.
Yeah, for The Lighthouse. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think they've been supporting maybe. I feel like Pattinson was the lead of that.
Yeah, that's right. So I guess we go into supporting actor in a supporting role here. Yeah, I don't know how Dafoe couldn't have been nominated. If you can give a monologue while being buried alive, I think you deserve an Oscar.
All right, check this out, though. I don't think Joaquin has won an Oscar because I think Philip Seymour Hoffman won it in 2006.
Oh, really?
Capote. Yeah. So I don't think Joaquin's ever won one.
Maybe he was just nominated then. Oh, you're right.
He has been nominated.
Nominated for 4 Oscars for The Master, Walk the Line, and Gladiator.
Yeah.
So I think he's due.
Won. Absolutely. Are you kidding me? He's so good. He's
yeah. Okay, my mistake.
Right,
I thought he won
role.
for Walk the Line. Yeah, supporting role, we have Tom Hanks, Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood, Anthony Hopkins, The Two Popes, Al Pacino, The Irishman, Joe Pesci, The Irishman, and Brad Pitt for Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. A lot of really strong performances this year, I think.
Brad Pitt's going to win.
Absolutely. There's no doubt in my mind he's going to win. I'm not sure. I am not sure.
Let's check it.
I think he has.
Don't give me a bullshit answer this time. Don't fucking lie to me again. Don't you dare.
I swear to God, in my head, I could picture Joaquin Phoenix's acceptance speech. Okay, he did win an Oscar.
I think he won an Oscar. What he did? What is it?
He won for being the good slave master in 12 Years a Slave.
As a producer. He did that as a producer, right?
Oh, right. That's right. Oh, you're right. Never mind.
That wasn't for his role. His role was 3 minutes, and he's like, slavery's real bad. Like that's like literally his entire role in that movie.
And he's
He
like
won
a
that for
carpenter.
producing.
Is he clearly supposed to be like a Jesus archetype or something?
Absolutely. So he only won for producing. He's
That's
never
right, I
won an
forgot about
acting
that.
role.
Okay. Yeah, he'll probably win for sure.
But that's like, I think Joaquin Phoenix win an Oscar for the songs in Walk the Line, but not for acting?
I don't think so. I think it's the writers that win, if anything, for that.
Okay.
So it would have said he won. I just checked it on IMDb, so I don't think he did.
Okay. So yeah, Brad Pitt producing.
Do you think he should win for that? Or do you think somebody else should take it?
Well, Pacino and Pesci definitely fucking don't. I didn't.
I actually think Pacino should win for The Irishman.
Are you kidding me?
No, I think he did an excellent job in The Irishman, Al Pacino. It's a very subtle, nuanced performance, I think.
It was fine.
Well, there are so many lines. I've only saw the movie once, and there are so many lines of his that I just have like glued in my memory just because of how well he performed it. Especially like, he wouldn't dare. They wouldn't dare. I have that stuck in my head for some reason. I think he did a great job. But Brad Pitt, I wouldn't be sad to see him win. All right,
I just didn't really like The Irishman that much.
Oh, did you finish it though?
I think just The Irishman in general. No, I got too bored with it. Maybe if I saw the whole thing.
Yeah, I think you might like it more if you stuck with it. Maybe.
You think I
might be wrong.
If I watched the whole thing, yeah. No, I probably should.
Because I think the length and the tediousness, tediousness. Am I saying that right? Yeah.
Tediness.
How am I saying that wrong? It feels right, but I know it's wrong.
Tediousness.
Tediousness. Oh my gosh. Yes, the tediousness of it sort of works for its story, so I think you got to stick with it. I might be wrong.
All right, I'll stick with it. No, you're
Actress
probably
in a leading role. We have Cynthia Erivo, I think, for Harriet. Scarlett Johansson, Marriage Story. Saoirse Ronan, Little Women. Charlize Theron, Bombshell, and Renee Zellweger for Judy.
I think Renee Zellweger would be my bet to win it.
Oh yeah, it's a lock. It's a lock for her.
You think she's gonna win? Yeah.
She's been winning everything, so yeah.
Fucking academies, and they fucking eat those like performer biopics up. It's just it's fucking ice cream for those people. Especially
for Renee Zellweger, because she's been kind of hiding for a while, and then she comes out with this big performance. So, yeah, for sure.
Is Saoirse Ronan's performance really good? Don't give me any spoilers, but like, it's good.
I think
in Little Women,
all of the performances in Little Women are excellent, and Saoirse Ronan does an excellent job. She's such a good actress. She's been nominated so many times.
And she's fucking 25, dude. She's my age. That's why.
I know. She's amazing. She's very, very talented.
She's so good.
Yes. But I actually think it should go to Scarlett Johansson. I think she really put herself out there.
Had a great performance. I thought Marriage
Story had a great year.
Yeah, she did. Yeah, because she's in Jojo Rabbit too. Which, for spoiler alert, but I think her performance in Marriage Story was obviously a lot stronger than the one in Jojo Rabbit. But
oh yeah, and there's a lot of
mature performance.
There's a lot of close-ups, long shots of her giving these performances, and she nails it. Like, you can see so much emotion just in her eyes, and it feels really natural, and it's a very powerful performance.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think it was great. But I don't think she'll win. I think Zellweger will.
Yeah, she will. And I wish Florence Pugh would have gotten nominated here as well for Midsommar. She did some pretty crazy things in that movie.
I feel like that movie,
the last half hour of that.
It was too off the wall to ever get a nomination, though, you know? It's like too weird.
Yeah. I think that's probably part of the reason why Uncut Gems didn't get any love. Because it's so... It's really... What's the word? It's a roller coaster ride. And it's not, like, fun to watch in a way. Like, it's very harrowing. And I think that turns some people off.
I also think, too, like, a lot of the stuff I read, so this isn't really my opinion, But it sounds like a lot of the like Academy people don't see Sandler as like a serious actor.
Well, and you can understand why, obviously, because of the stuff he usually
because he's
makes.
not usually, yeah. But he's great. He's great.
When he's not trying to just get a paycheck for his friends and going on vacation and making a movie out of it, he's very talented.
Definitely.
Yeah.
But I even liked early Sandler stuff, like Big Daddy and that kind of stuff. Like there was something to some of those performances.
Sure. All right, we got actress in a leading role: Kathy Bates, Richard Jewell, Laura Dern for Marriage Story, Scarlett Johansson again for Jojo Rabbit, Florence Pugh for Little Women, and Margot Robbie for Bombshell.
Who's been winning this a lot, like at other award shows?
Laura Dern has been taking like every award, so I think it's going to go to her, and I think it's well deserved. She did a really good job in that role, even though
I loved her in that role.
Yeah, she only has a handful of scenes, but she just owns the room anytime she's in the shot, and I think she deserves it for sure. But I actually think it should I would like to see Florence Pugh win for Little Women, because she was really good in that film. Very.
Was she better than Dern, you think?
Oh, because actually Laura Dern was in Little Women as well.
Really?
Yeah, she plays the mother of the girls. So she's been having a great year too. Holy cow, we're having a Laura Dern-assance, I think. She's been in everything lately, it seems. I think she has a lot more screen time than Laura Dern, so I think maybe that's why I'm thinking that.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But they're both really strong.
But she's like kind of a newcomer, and I could see her like she would need to get a couple more nominations before they give it to her. Maybe.
But I would love to see her win just because she is a newcomer. She is such a great actress, and I would just love to see her career just skyrocket, like right out of the gate, just so she can get like all of the roles she wants, because she's so good on screen. She only has 15 credits on her IMDb, and all of her performances are like incredible. Yeah, and she was in this short film that I watched recently, directed by Zach Braff, called In the Time It Takes to Get There. It's a comedy. It's really funny. It's actually made by Adobe, the company Adobe. They had like a poster contest to see who could design the best poster, and then they made a movie based on the poster. Yeah. So yeah, I would have really liked to see Lupita Nyong'o nominated for Us. Her performance in that was really, really crazy and wild.
And she played two characters too. So
yeah, absolutely. She did a great job there. Animated feature film. We have How to Train Your Dragon: The Hidden World, I Lost My Body, Klaus, The Missing Link, and Toy Story 4. I think this is actually a pretty weak movie for animated features. Have you seen any of these? I'm gonna guess you haven't.
Wait, is it Klaus or Claus?
I'm not sure. I've been hearing it both ways. I think it's supposed to be Klaus. I don't remember how they pronounce it in the movie. I think it's supposed to be Klaus.
Movie, right?
Yeah, I think I mentioned it earlier
Honestly,
in the podcast.
dude,
I think that one should win. I really do.
Okay. As far as
honestly,
this,
dude,
I don't even have an opinion.
Well, I know you historically aren't as into animated films as live action. Is that fair?
True.
And
absolutely.
Yeah. I usually go out on my way to watch these, so I did. I think it's gonna go to Missing Link because that one won for a Golden Globe. And
okay.
I don't think the movie is very strong, but I would love to see Laika Studios win an Oscar, so it wouldn't hurt me. It's a great stop motion animated company out of Portland that I would like to see get some love. They made Kubo and the Two Strings, which I really like.
That's a beautiful movie. I love that movie.
Yeah.
Kubo and the
Missing
Two Strings.
Link looks gorgeous, but it's such a traditional, basic, down the middle script that it didn't really hook me. But I
Toy
think
Story ever won?
Should go to Klaus.
I'm assuming the first Toy Story won an Oscar, right? Or no, it didn't, and that's why this thing is even made, right? The reason animated feature film became its own thing is because of Toy Story, isn't it?
I think so. Shrek, the year Shrek came out was the first year oh wait, no. It was nominated for 3 Oscars. Special Achievement Award, writing, original song. Yeah, so they didn't have that category till Shrek came out. But
Has any Toy Story movie won an Oscar for
let me check.
Best
That's
Animated?
a good question. I'm guessing so because Pixar almost always wins. Oh yeah, Toy Story 3 won for Best Animated Feature. So that franchise has won before.
It doesn't deserve anything then.
Yeah, it doesn't deserve anything then. And usually Pixar movies are a lock because it's Disney, and Disney owns ABC, which does the Oscars, and they tend to give themselves awards a lot, unfortunately. There was one year for Toy Story 3, actually, Buzz Lightyear, they had a pre-recorded, pre-animated thing of Buzz Lightyear and Woody giving the nomination or giving the award for Best Animated Feature, and they gave it to Toy Story. They literally gave it to themselves.
Oh my god, to themselves.
And they must have made that ahead of time, unless they made one for every winner or something. But it just came off like they were just giving it to themselves. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it will go to Missing Link, but I would really like to see Klaus win because it's a great film, and I'd like to see some traditional 2D animation get some love. Cinematography, we have The Irishman, Joker, The Lighthouse, 1917, and Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Oh, I should mention
hot take.
Yeah,
what's up?
I was just gonna say real quick that I looked at the somebody sent the link to the For Your Consideration Oscar campaign for the Lion King remake, which I think is god awful. And they did like a campaign for pretty much any award you could possibly think of. I mean, they even like tried to get Eric Andre to get nominated for like Best Supporting Actor as a hyena. But the one category they didn't try to get an Oscar nomination for was Best Animated Feature, because it insists that it's a live action movie, which I think is just
even though
absurd.
It's fucking animated. Yeah.
Okay, hot take on cinematography.
Yeah, here's my hot take. The Lighthouse should win. That's my hot take. And
agreed.
I think 1917 will win, which is kind of cool because it'll be Deacon's second after like such a long time never getting one. Mm-hmm. I honestly
he's dropping the mic on himself in that movie.
Yeah, I think, and it's a long one. People love that long take shit. I think The Irishman was really boring and like traditionally lit. I don't know why. It's like just kind of classically good, I guess. Joker, honestly, the cinematography was the thing I liked least about that movie. It was like if you gave like amateur, like a lot of like amateur people shoot the way like super shallow depth of field, like slow-mo and like weird places. Like I didn't feel like Joker was super hype as far as cinematography. Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, honestly, is my second favorite. Like, I think that's an incredibly well shot movie.
I think it's well shot, but I can't really think of any shots that really
that
pop
crane
out in my
shot,
head.
Dude. When DiCaprio is in the pool practicing on the cassette tape, and there's that crane shot that goes over his house to the Polanski's car. That's beautiful.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I'll give you that, but I'm with you on The Irishman. I actually like the cinematography a lot in Joker. I understand your criticisms, though. It does follow. It is kind of tropey, but it is really nice to look at. And just thinking back on it right now, I can think of a handful of shots that I remember from that film. But it definitely should go to The Lighthouse. The amount of work that they put into that, how that movie looks, is mind-blowing. And I watched like a few featurettes on all of it, and it's like just incredible, like what they did. It's more than just the fact that it's black and white, and it's more than the fact that it's that aspect ratio. There's so much detail.
Did any other movie like create the mood of the whole film the way the cinematography did in The Lighthouse?
No,
you know, it's
within
such a
15
huge
seconds
part of
in that movie.
film. Absolutely.
Yeah. I completely agree. The cinematography sets the tone just immediately in that film. I saw in one featurette that they because the way it was lit, that they needed really, really bright lights in order to light some of the scenes. So a lot of the scenes are lit by like one light, but it's a super bright light, but you can't tell because it's black and white, and it sort of like fits that motif of like this lighthouse light. It's really cool. Yeah. But it'll go. I think it'll go to 1917, and rightfully so. It is really well shot. I mean, even separate from the fact that it's a one take looking movie, it is really gorgeous looking. There's a sequence that's lit just in the night, just by flares in the sky, and it like the way the shadows like cross the screen. I've never seen anything like it, so I think it's well deserved. Uncut Gems, I think, should have been nominated here for as well. I think
Absolutely.
it's kind of ugly looking, but in a good way.
In a good way. You should read some of the like the guy who did the cinematography on that has like predominantly worked in like a very classical mode like up to this point, and he's worked with a lot of like European auteurs and people who have a very demanding like classical style, and he really threw away like everything he knew out the window for it. It's worth reading a few articles about the Uncut Gems cinematography.
Cool. Yeah, we'll get into it when we talk more about Uncut Gems, but just the way they light rooms that are lit with fluorescent lights looks like nothing else out there right now. I know that sounds super nerdy, I guess, but it's true. There's like this like greenish glow to the movie in a lot of scenes, especially in Adam Sandler's office. All right, costume design. We have The Irishman, Jojo Rabbit, Joker, Little Women, and Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Do you have any thoughts on this category?
Nah. Who do you think should win?
I think it should, and I think it will win. I think it's going to go to The Irishman. Just the fact that how many costumes they had to make for that movie, and all the different time periods and everything. There's a lot of work involved in that movie.
Okay, sure.
Yeah, although the safe bet would probably be Little Women, because period pieces with a lot of costumes is usually what wins, and The Irishman, I guess, technically fits that category. So yeah, I think that one will win. All right, directing. This is kind of a big one. We have The Irishman, Joker, 1917, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, and Parasite. Parasite getting some love here.
I think Parasite should win. I think Bong Joon-ho should win.
Agreed.
And to me, in my
100%.
head right now, it's a toss-up between if Mendes or Tarantino wins.
Yeah, I'm right with you, Jared. I agree 100%. Sam Mendes, because he's been winning the awards. 1917 seems to be the front runner for a lot of the awards it was nominated for. But if Tarantino has any chance to win an Oscar, I think it's here.
Yeah.
And I think the Academy likes Tarantino. They've given him Oscars for screenplay. And I have a feeling his 10th movie is not going to be as strong as this one. It's probably going to be kind of wild and out there and weird. And I think they're going to give it to him because this is probably the last chance he'll get, I think. That's my guess.
Yeah, I honestly kind of thought the same thing of like, this is the time to give it to him.
Yeah.
I think Mendes is going to get it though. If I had to take a commitment on it, I think he will. I think Tarantino's going to get shut out of the Best Director award.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, as much of a gimmick as the fake one-shot movie is, the complexity of directing a picture like that is pretty big and
undoubtedly
commendable.
so.
So it would be deserved, but I think it's going to go to Tarantino. But I do think that Bong Joon-ho should win for Parasite. the challenge of balancing all the different genres and tones throughout that film is just masterfully done, I think. And obviously Greta Gerwig, I think, should have been nominated for Little Women. It's a shame she didn't.
Yeah,
she's been nominated for everything
too.
else. Yeah, I would have gotten
Eggers
Todd Phillips out of there.
Nominated for The Lighthouse too. Yeah, I think so. I think Eggers could have gotten nominated for The Lighthouse.
Yeah, I agree there.
Like, I think he deserved it more than Scorsese.
Yeah, sure, I can see that because, yeah, I mean, Scorsese is obviously great. He's Scorsese, but leave some room for some new blood, I guess.
Yeah. And it's also not like one of his best directed movies. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, I could see that. Documentary feature. The only one I've seen here was Honeyland, and I said earlier that it's really, really incredible. I watched trailers for all these other ones that were nominated, and Honeyland is like on a completely different like playing field, completely different like plane of existence. There's no way it's not going to win.
Okay.
So
how about short subject?
I didn't watch any of these. I think
I haven't seen any of these.
We just skip it.
Let's skip it.
Skip it.
Yeah.
Film editing. We have Ford v Ferrari, The Irishman, Jojo Rabbit, Joker, and Parasite. Now, I think this is the hardest category to predict because I feel like a lot of the voters for this category don't really know what editing is, it seems. I mean, Bohemian Rhapsody won last year. What does that tell you?
Yeah, it's the fucking worst edited movie of the year.
Yeah, it's crazy that won. It's so crazy. So who knows? Usually, I feel like for the technical awards, it's like whichever one has its most like obvious, like where you can see the editing the most, it's gonna win.
Yeah,
you know,
exactly.
or like
which
for
is like
sound editing.
opposite.
Yeah.
I think Parasite should win this one, and I could see like Ford vs Ferrari winning this one or something.
Dude, I agree with you. Again, we're on the same page there. Like Ford v Ferrari has like the most editing, so it's probably gonna win. And it's not bad like Bohemian Rhapsody. It's fine, but the editing doesn't have as much character in it as it does in Parasite. The Lighthouse, I think, should also have been nominated.
Midsommar
and also
maybe
Marriage
could have been too.
Yeah. Also, Marriage Story, I think, is exceptionally well edited.
Yeah.
I've watched that movie 3 times now, and I rarely rewatch movies these days. And I've noticed the last time that the editing is really, really precise in a lot of scenes and really well done. International feature film. We have Corpus Christi, Honeyland, Les Miserables, Pain and Glory, and Parasite. I'm guessing you've only seen Parasite, and it's going to be Parasite.
It's going to win. It's a lock. It's a lock.
It's a lock.
It's the closest thing. Book it. I want Parasite for Best Picture. I want a parlay on makeup and hairstyling. I want to...
Oh, God. Are you becoming a junkie like Adam Sandler?
Yeah. The opening joke will fall flat. I want the opening joke to fall flat.
Is that the tip-off?
Yeah, that's the tip-off. That's the tip-off.
That's hilarious. Yeah, I mean, how weird would it be if Parasite won for Best Picture, but then didn't win Best International Film?
That would be so stupid.
I think it's kind of cool that they changed this title from foreign language film to international feature. I kind of like that.
Absolutely.
Well,
what if
I think a big part of that actually. Sorry.
Like, what if a British film wanted to win? Then it's still in English, but it's foreign.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, and also I think part of it has to do with the fact that the movie The Farewell, which should have been nominated for a few things, also was mostly in Mandarin, but it's an American movie, so foreign language film.
Yeah.
Kind of muddies that water a little bit.
Absolutely.
So yeah, One Cut of the Dead should have been nominated for this category, but in a million years. I would have never gotten it
Whoa.
just because of what kind of movie it is. It really is that incredible. It's like watching it's like Who Killed Captain Alex level of entertainment, that movie.
Wow. Big
Yeah.
praise.
Yes. Although One Cut of the Dead is like more intentional in its humor, I would say. Makeup and hairstyling. Do you really care about this category? It's gonna go to Bombshell because makeup usually wins for like old age makeup or making people look like non-fictional characters.
Yeah.
So it's gonna go to Bombshell
So
for making people look like.
Judy could win.
Maybe, but I haven't seen Bombshell. But if you watch the trailer, they really
They all
made
fucking look like the real people.
Yeah. Especially, what's her name? Charlize Theron looks exactly like
Megyn
what's her
Kelly,
name?
right?
Megyn Kelly, yeah.
Megyn
It's
Kelly.
crazy, yeah. Original score. This is a category I always like because I love listening to scores when I'm like, working on stuff. So we have Joker, Little Women, Marriage Story, 1917, and Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker. And Uncut Gems got snubbed again. That beautiful synth score.
Incredible.
Yeah.
I think Joker will and should win this one, though.
I agree. That score really amplifies the tone of the film, I think.
Beautiful.
And I really like that there's some hints to Hans Zimmer's Dark Knight score in there as well. I think a lot of it is like similar chord progressions and stuff. I don't know that much about music theory, but that's what it sounds like to me. And I think that's one of the better aspects of that film for sure. So I agree with you there.
Absolutely.
The only other score that really stood out to me out of these nominees was Randy Newman's score for Marriage Story. Such a cute, wholesome,
that was good.
heartwarming score. Yeah.
Yeah, an underrated part of that of that movie.
Yeah. I was reading some like half-star reviews of Marriage Story just for fun, and one person just wrote the decline of a marriage set to the score of Toy Story or something like that. That was pretty funny. Yeah. I really wish Uncut Gems would have taken place of Star Wars: Rise of Skywalker because it doesn't really sound like there's any new music in it. It's like somebody wrote on Letterboxd that John Williams wasn't, what was it? He wasn't the musical artist in this movie. He was more of like a DJ, like just playing tracks, just playing themes.
Yeah.
Like whenever a person showed up, it would just play their theme. It's just like plugging in all of these old themes just wherever they would fit. So I don't think that one's really deserved. We can skip original song because it's going to go to Elton John for Rocket Man. There's no way he's not going to win.
Good for him.
For that one.
I forgot that movie happened.
That's a good movie. It's way better than Bohemian Rhapsody. I'll give you that. And Taron Egerton actually sang the songs and did a damn good job. He should have gotten a nomination, I think, because he did an excellent job. But the actors this year were all exceptional, so I understand why he was kind of left out. Do you care at all about production design? Is that something you care much about?
No, I could see Once Upon a Time winning though.
I think that one should win. There's a lot of detail, and the fact that he closed down Hollywood Boulevard is crazy because they never allow people to do that. And he just transformed it back to his childhood days. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. I mean, production design is one of those things that, like, it's one of the most important parts of a movie, but it's underlooked, but it's almost hard to, like, really pin down sort of what... It's like everything. So it's hard to pin down what kind of makes it a winner or not,
Yeah, I think The Lighthouse was a snub for this one just because of all the detail in that set. It looked like it's been there, that they built that shed or that they built that lighthouse for the movie, and it looks like it's just been there forever. Yeah, that was really cool. Animated short film. I watched a couple of these. I think it's going to go to Hair Love. It's available on YouTube. It's a really cute, fun, funny, heartwarming animated short, and those almost always win. So I think it's going to go to that one. Although there is this one called Daughter animated short. I haven't seen it, but the trailer is available on YouTube. It's a stop motion short, but it doesn't look like anything I've ever seen because, you know, usually in stop motion films, the camera is stationary and doesn't move, you know?
Yeah.
In this one, it's like extreme close-ups and the camera's moving around and focusing and stuff, and it makes it look more real. It's really weird, kind of jarring to watch. So I kind of want to check that one out. I'll mention the live action short films just because I was able to watch a few of these because they're available online. There's one called Nefta Football Club that's really funny and great. I can't remember what country it's from. It's available on YouTube. It's really, really good. So I would recommend checking that one out if you have like 10 minutes. It's pretty great. Sound editing and mixing, I think, is a lock for 1917.
Yeah.
Because those war movies almost always win those. And again,
like
these technical awards.
Yeah.
Yeah. Again, these technical awards, it's like whatever was the loudest wins these awards, it seems.
Exactly. Visual
so it's either going to be
probably...
It's either going to be 1917 or Ford v Ferrari for the sound stuff.
Ford v
Visual
Ferrari,
effects.
Yeah.
Oh, I should say that
The Irishman.
The Lighthouse. Oh, I was going to say, I think The Lighthouse is a snub for sound mixing.
Yeah.
Just the way they use sound in that movie was great. With it's constantly raining and that foghorn and everything. That also sets the tone very much. What were we going to say about visual effects? We have Avengers
Irishman.
Endgame. It's going to go to the Irish. I think it should go to the Irishman, but unfortunately, I think it's going to go to the Lion King.
Oh my God, no.
Yep. There's always one award that's like embarrassing to watch win. And I think it's going to be this one because I think the Academy knows better to nominate, not let it win for anything else. But if anything, it would be visual effects just because it's so realistic looking, even though I think it looks like garbage. But I think it should go to the Irishman.
Yeah.
You didn't finish that film, but you must have seen a lot of the, face replacement age stuff that they did. Do you think it worked for you? Because a lot of people are kind of split on that.
No, it didn't. I honestly, it wasn't the age face. It was a little bit and I saw some people do like amateur touch-ups using like face change things that honestly looked better. But the thing that really took me out of the aging thing in that is that like they have the young person's face, but they still move their bodies like they're in their 70s.
Yeah. I get
so
that.
it's supposed to be this like 40 or like 30s-year-old dock worker, and he looks like a fucking grandpa in his body. And he's just so stiff.
I watched
that whole movie is
with...
just Robert De Niro making the same stupid fucking face at reverse shots at people. I just think it's such a fucking dumb. I'm sorry. And I don't.
It's okay.
I love Scorsese, and I don't want Scorsese's movies to be like unenjoyable, but I don't ever stop Scorsese movies a third of the way through because for the reasons I have, So
no,
I hope as I watch
understand.
it longer and I just give myself up to it, I can fucking do it. But
yeah,
I don't know.
I didn't really enjoy that movie until like the last half hour, and it's all started to kind of come together for me. So man, I get where you're coming from.
That's a great way to sell a 3-hour movie, is to tell me the half hour at the end is really worth it. Man, sign me up.
It's not that the half hour is good and the rest isn't. It's that the whole of the movie started to make more sense towards the end. I don't know how to explain it.
Sure.
Yeah.
I'll just have to fucking see it, I guess.
maybe you won't have the same experience I did. I mean, it made my top 10, but it's like number 10. I don't think it's extremely strong, but I think it does have some good qualities. But yeah,
Okay.
like I said, I think visual effects is gonna go to The Lion King just because of the scale of it all. But I think it should go to The Irishman. Not necessarily because the facial stuff worked, but because they did it without any like tracking markers or anything. There's some pretty cool technology that went into there. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I thought you were gonna say not because it works, but because they tried.
They gave it the old college try, you know?
It's the most condescending thing. Okay. Adapted screenplay. What you got?
So we have The Irishman, Jojo Rabbit, Joker, Little Women, and The Two Popes. The screenplay awards are honestly my favorite awards because I think this is where like the best movies usually win. Because to me, like the screenplay is like the most important part of a movie. So these are always the awards that I really put a lot of thought into, and for adapted screenplay, I think it's gonna go to Jojo Rabbit, but despite what we've just said about The Irishman, I think it should either go to The Irishman or Little Women.
I think it should and will go to Little Women. Just honestly, I know I haven't seen it, but just from what I've heard she's done with that material that like everybody already knows, I think just hearing all of that, I think it's gonna go. And like if it's as good as it sounds like it is, like it should go there.
Yeah, I think I did my picks before I saw Little Women, so maybe I would change it, but I can see that. I never read Little Women, so I'm not sure how much different it is. But I do know that she plays around a lot with but not time, but like going back and forth through time and the way she like plays it all out in the certain order. And yeah, I think you're right. But the reason why I said The Irishman should win for this one is because I only saw The Irishman once, and it's a 3.5 hour long movie, and there's like a good handful of lines that I remember like verbatim, because so I think that's a good sign of a good screenplay a lot of times, is if there's a lot of really memorable lines and moments. And
Okay.
So we have original screenplay, which I think this is like the most important award for awarding original stories, because we see so much, so many remakes and sequels and stuff, that I think it's really important to highlight original work. So this is a category I have a lot of value in. We have Knives Out, Marriage Story, 1917, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, and Parasite. And The Lighthouse, I think, should have definitely been nominated.
Yep.
But I think these are all very, very well
and
deserved.
Uncut Gems. And
Uncut Gems for sure. Yeah. What do you think about these here?
I think this is gonna be what they give Quentin for not giving him the director. I think he'll get it for Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, and they won't give him the best director one. To me, who should win? To me, it's a toss up between Marriage Story and Parasite. And I think I would give it. In my heart, I think I would give it to Parasite.
Okay. I was with you debating between those two, but ultimately I said I think it should go to Marriage Story. Just, again, there's a lot of lines that I remember. I mean, I've rewatched Parasite once, but I've rewatched Marriage Story like 2 or 3 times. Just because the dialogue is so rich and natural and comforting. It's a very comforting movie for me, even though it's like harrowing. There's something comforting about that movie for me. I don't know what it is, and I think a lot of it has to do with the screenplay.
I would totally be happy if it did win for screenplay. I think it's an incredible screenplay.
Yeah, and I really love the fact that towards the end there's like those 2 musical numbers, even though they're not really musical numbers, and they're both Sondheim songs from the musical company, which makes sense because they're both actors from New York, so it makes sense that they would know these songs. But the fact that Noah Baumbach like saw these 2 songs from this musical and he noticed that they both perfectly fit what's happening to these two characters, I think was really moving. And, you know, all the other dialogue as well was great.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would be happy to see any of these win. I'm so thankful that Knives Out got nominated, because that movie was really fun and great. And they're working on a sequel for that movie with they're bringing back Daniel Craig's character with a whole new mystery, and I think that's going to be really fun.
Is it going to be called
I can't wait
Guns Out?
to see it.
What's it going to be called?
Pencils Out. It's going to be like a kid murder mystery. Some preschooler stabbed another kid in the eye or something. That'd be funny. Yeah, so I think it's going to go to Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. I agree, because Tarantino has been nominated for a ton of almost all of his screenplays, it seems. Not all of them, but a lot. And he's won 2 Oscars, and they're both for screenplay. So I think that's
Pulp Fiction and Bastards, right? Pulp
Fiction and Django Unchained, actually.
Oh wow! Okay.
Yeah. All right, let's get to the big one, Best Picture.
Woo!
All right, actually, before we finish our discussion on the Oscar nominations for Best Picture, I just want to highlight real quick that the Film Independent Awards, the Spirit Awards, I think are also worth mentioning, because it's like if you're not aware, it's like the Oscars, but for independent cinema. And I really wish that this award show got as much love as the Oscars, because this is where really great cinema is represented and celebrated, and it's not as political or fake as the Oscars. It's usually a lot more wholesome, and usually more deserving films win the awards there. And I think it's the awards are like in February, but if you're really into cinema, go and check out the nominations for those, because there are some great movies nominated. And there's an award for like Best First Feature. And again, it's all independent films. So I just want to say real quick that the Best Picture nominees for that are Clemency, which I haven't even heard of, The Farewell, A Hidden Life, Marriage Story, and Uncut Gems. Uncut Gems is getting a lot of love in the Spirit Awards. So at least there's that. So I just wanted to shout out the Spirit Awards.
Cool.
Yeah. Have you ever watched the Spirit Awards or been interested in that at all? I'm just curious.
I kind of have been interested in it because the Walker, for Walker members, it's like the Contemporary Art Museum in Minneapolis. I'm not a member, but I have friends who are. They show like screenings of the Spirit Award nominees for free to Walker members. So yeah, I've always been aware of it.
And Aubrey Plaza is hosting it for the second time, and she's hilarious. I watched her opening monologue for last year, and it's great. I mean, they kind of pull no punches, and they can swear and stuff because it's not on a network, so it's a little bit more informal, which is fun.
Does it take place in LA?
Check this out. I'm not sure. I don't know much about where it's shot. I know they shoot it in like a big tent or something. Yeah, it's like a gala kind of a deal. And yeah, kind of cool. All right, so Best Picture. We have 9 nominees this year. They can do up to 10, but they never do. Ford v. Ferrari, The Irishman, Jojo Rabbit, Joker, Little Women, Marriage Story, 1917, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, and Parasite. What do you think of this list overall? Or actually, let me start by asking. Yeah, it's obviously that's a given. Uncut Gems should definitely be on it, and The Lighthouse, The Farewell, all those I think are well deserving for the spot on there. But which of these have you seen? Just so we know as a frame of reference here.
I have seen a third of The Irishman, the commercials of Ford v Ferrari. I've seen Jojo Rabbit. I've seen Joker. I have not seen Little Women yet. I've seen Marriage Story. I have not seen 1917 yet. I have seen Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, and I have seen Parasite. And I will finish The Irishman Yeah, I will finish The Irishman. I will watch Little Women, and I will watch 1917 before the awards. I'm not gonna watch Ford v Ferrari. Sorry.
It's a good movie. It's
yeah.
not. I don't think it necessarily should have been nominated for Best Picture, but it's not bad. It's like I said when we talked when I mentioned it. It's
movie.
It's a dad movie, but it's a really good dad movie, man. And I think it's got a. I think it's got a. It's good. It's not bad. If you ever find yourself on like a rainy day, and Ford v Ferrari, the DVD magically appears in front of you.
If it's on like Netflix, there's no way in hell I'm gonna go to the movies to pay for that, though.
Oh, I wouldn't say go to the movies for it. You know, don't go out for it, but it's worth watching. It's not bad. I mean, I think this list overall is pretty strong. It's predictable, obviously, because I predicted all of them. So there's not really any surprises here.
It's predictable because I fucking nailed it. I love that.
I mean, there's no Green Book this year. You know what I mean?
Ford v Ferrari is our Green Book.
Maybe, but like Green Book was like a grandpa movie. Yeah. Did I say Green? Yeah, Green Book is like a grandpa movie, and it's kind of bad. It's kind of a dumb story too. But I wouldn't say that. I wouldn't say that about Ford v Ferrari. I mean, Uncut Gems should have definitely taken its place, but it's not bad.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember last year there were only 2 movies I could even conceivably consider it winning, and that was I think The Farewell, and they're not The Farewell.
The Favorite.
The Favorite and Roma, right? Yeah, The Favorite and Roma were like the only 2 like good movies nominated.
Yeah, they should have been the only 2 nominated. Period.
Yeah, but this year, I mean, there's a good handful of these I wouldn't mind seeing win Best Picture. I wouldn't mind seeing Little Women winning, or Marriage Story, or 1917, or Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, or Parasite. Like all of those, I wouldn't complain about if they won. But I think it should go to Parasite. Me
too. I think it should.
Yeah. Yeah, it's an absolutely incredible film if you haven't watched it. Did you happen to watch, or I sent you a link of Bong Joon-ho's speech, and he said something like, once you get past the 1-inch barrier of subtitles, you'll have access to so much more amazing stories in cinema, or something like that.
Yeah.
Which is so true. And you've taught me that a great deal.
Good. I'm glad. Pretty much most of my favorite movies are foreign films, so.
And I'm starting to understand why, for sure. Because Parasite just seems like in a different league above these movies. It feels like something special while you're watching it.
Yep. Absolutely. Sure. I think of all these movies, it's the one most likely people will still talk about 20 years from now, you know?
Yeah. I think you're right. Or maybe Jojo Rabbit, just because of how much of a hard swing it is. Because we don't see movies like that made on such a big budget much these days. So I could see people talking about Jojo Rabbit for a while because of that. But who do you think is going to win? I think it's a toss-up between a few things this year. I think this is going to be a hard year to predict it for this one.
I think it's either going to be 1917 or Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
I agree 100%. Again.
Yeah. And if I had to go I
should drive up. I was going to say maybe I should drive up to Minnesota to watch it with you, because it seems like we're just on the same page, rooting for the same people.
Absolutely should, dude. You know I got a place for you. You stay up for the weekend. You have a good time. Do it.
Yeah. I mean, hopefully I have a job by then, because I've been on the job hunt since I graduated, and I haven't really had any luck lately. But
if anybody's listening, my man needs some work.
Yep, that's true. Well, to be honest, applying for jobs sucks so much. But yeah. You should do that. Definitely. I agree with you that it's a toss-up between those two. 1917 seems to be the strongest choice right now because of it's been winning so many awards. Yeah. And it's been Joker has a fair chance too, because it has the most nominations, so it seems like it's on people's mind the most. Although there have been years in the past, I can't recall what movie in particular, but I remember in the past there was like one movie that was nominated more than any other movie, and then it didn't win anything.
Yeah. I think The Favorite
So-
had like a dozen nominees last year and won maybe one or two.
Yeah, it won. Olivia Colman won, I think, and maybe like
Yeah.
cinematography or something,
And
I
maybe
don't know.
like costumes.
Oh yeah, you're right. No, that was Black Panther. Black Panther won for costume design.
Oh, you're right. You're right.
Yeah, which is well deserved. But yeah, it's a toss up between 1917, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, and like dark horse pick would be Joker, I think. Oh, The Favorite only did win one Oscar, and it was for Olivia Colman. Yeah,
Colman.
but it got
That's
nominated for a
wild.
ton of other things. Yeah. Yeah, I mean 1917 because it is like this. A lot of people really like the one take aspect of it. It does have a real heart to it. It's not like a corny look at the bravery of American soldiers kind of war movie. It's more nuanced than that. It's no Hacksaw Ridge.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm excited to see it.
Yeah, I typically don't like war movies because I don't really know. I'm so dumb when it comes to history and war stuff, so I get lost a lot. But the story of 1917 couldn't be more simple. It's like, Saving Private Ryan. It's just two people trying to deliver a message. And you just watch them on this journey as it's like set piece after set piece. And it's a pretty harrowing experience. So it makes sense to me why it would win. And I wouldn't be upset if it did. Because it is a great movie, I think. Although it did fall a little flat for me. I'm still not sure why. I mean, like, emotionally. I'm still not sure. I'm still like... I might go see it again. Because I still... I'm not sure why it didn't land for me as well as it did with a lot of other people, because a lot of other people, it's like blowing their minds. But there is a lot of respectable aspects of it. But Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, I think, also has a chance, partially because Tarantino hasn't gotten his chance yet, and this is probably the best chance he'll get. And also, you and I both know that Hollywood loves to pat themselves on the back.
Yep.
They like stories about Hollywood.
Exactly.
Especially a movie where, mild spoiler alert, where they, really pay respect to like a time gone by and wish fulfillment of better things happening in the past or something like that. There's something kind of cathartic about that Hollywood might feel at this point in time. So I can understand that as well. And I don't remember exactly where you thought Once Upon a Time in Hollywood landed in your ranking of like Tarantino movies, but I do think it's one of his, in like the stronger half of his career.
I rewatched it on the airplane when I was going to Israel, and I liked it a lot better the second time, and I liked it a pretty decent amount the first time, but yeah, I think it's pretty good.
Yeah, I agree that it does land a lot better the second time. Like, once you realize what the movie's really about, you can kind of glom onto things a little bit better the second time around, because you understand what Tarantino's trying to do. Yeah. Cool.
Yeah, but I think at the
do you
end
have
of the
any
day,
other
I would
thoughts on
give it to
Best Picture here?
1917. At the end of the day, I'd give it to 1917. As my guess, that's what I think will happen.
Okay. I think that's the safe bet, and for my guess of who's gonna win, I'm gonna go out with Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. I'm gonna guess that this is gonna be like the big surprise of the night, that Tarantino wins, and he's gonna give a crazy self-indulgent speech as he always does. A lot of people didn't like his Golden Globe speech for winning a screenplay, because he was like, it's weird for me to accept this award, because like usually you want to thank people, but I mean, I wrote the script. I have nobody to thank. I did it.
That's awesome.
It was all me.
Oh, that's so good.
Yeah.
So good.
Yeah, that was really funny. But then he was like, oh, but I wouldn't have done it without the work of my actors who put my words to life, yada, yada, yada. But
yeah.
I'd be really curious to I just want to see him win that award. It'd be crazy. And then they'd be like, no, there's been a mistake. Lion King, you won Best Picture. Oh, man. Okay, so I think that about covers it for the Oscar nominations. So it should be an interesting night. I think overall, I think it's kind of a bummer that there isn't a wide selection of movies that was nominated this year. If you watch, like I said, Joker was nominated for 11 movies. There are 3 other movies that were nominated for 3 other movies that were nominated for 10 nominations. And so if you watch all of the Best Picture nominations, you've seen almost everything that's on this list. But I kind of wish there was more variety in the movies that were nominated, because usually you see a lot more movies, but there's not as many. So that was kind of a bummer for me to see.
Yeah, I'm pretty high. I'm ready to talk about Uncut Gems.
Yeah. Let's get into it. Let's talk about the biggest snub of all time.
It's so fucked up, man. It's so fucked up. It was so good.
We're gonna play a trailer for clip from the trailer for Uncut Gems starting right now.
I made a crazy risk, a gamble. And it's about to pay off.
So I want the Celtics to cover. I want the Celtics halftime. I want Garnett points and rebounds.
What do you know?
I don't know. I just know.
Well, I'll tell you what I know. It's the dumbest fucking bet I ever heard of.
I disagree. Gary.
What is that?
I started it.
Are you serious? You're taking my money all over town, placing bets.
I'm having very serious second thoughts.
Are you serious right now?
I know I fucked up.
Howard, where's the money right now?
Howard, got my money?
Is it too late? I'm done. It means nothing. It meant nothing. Please. Give me another shot.
All right, Jared. So I always make a top 10 list every year of my favorite movies of the year. So for 2019, my top 3 movies are Parasite, Marriage Story, and Uncut Gems.
Yeah, Uncut Gems is my number 2 for this year.
Number 1 is still Parasite, I'm guessing?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, so this movie is fucking awesome. Directed by the Safdie brothers, who have been getting a lot of talk in film circles.
Yeah.
Especially since their last movie, Good Time, which was excellent.
Yep. And they had really good shit before that too. Like they had this movie called Daddy Longlegs that was really good. They had one called like, I think it was called like The Pleasure of Being Robbed. But yeah.
Yeah, you've mentioned that a couple times on this show, and I really want to check that one out.
It's good. I like their style. It's like that. I mean, it's like kind of classic New York in a way. Like it's realistic. It's like on the street. It like finds these weird ass fucking people that they're totally just like completely out of New York and
non-actors.
Yeah, and they always feel like I feel like everything they show me, it's like I'm being Heaven Knows What was another good one they made, but it's like you're always being introduced to like this subculture you felt like always existed, but you're feeling like you're really being shown it for the first time.
Yeah.
And this movie too is like it's such a specific. It's not just New York, you know. It's not this like overarching attempt to describe New York. It's like we are gonna follow the Diamond District, and we're gonna follow like the world of bookies, and it's like such a specific part of New York they're trying to show, you know. And I think that's part of what makes this movie so special is the specificity of it.
Well, this is a small indie film And so we should introduce it real quick. So it stars Adam Sandler, and he plays this. He plays a jeweler in New York City, like you said, and he's a gambling addict through and through. And we just watch him make bad decision after bad decision after bad decision, as he just keeps on putting money on the line. And the story kind of revolves around this literal uncut gem that he finds, an opal from. Do you remember where it was?
Ethiopia.
An Ethiopian. I think it's like he bought it. They imply that he bought it from like the black market or something, and he thinks that this jewel is beautiful, and he sells it to. He tries to give it to Kevin Garnett, a real life basketball star, who I wouldn't have known was a real basketball star until like 5 minutes before the movie, and then I looked it up, and because I don't know anything about sports.
He was my favorite player in the NBA until LeBron James came in, but I had a poster of Kevin Garnett in my room when I was a kid.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, he played for the Timberwolves when I was a kid. So whenever I went to my grandparents' house, they were on the TV, and I remember watching Kevin Garnett all the time when I was little.
And this movie takes place in like the mid 2000s,
2012,
right?
which I actually remembered the series of games that they were showing in the movie. Like I knew how all those games ended.
I feel like it's gonna be difficult to make a movie like that, like a few years back, but not too far back, because the technology has to be just a little bit behind, like the OS on like the iPhones is like a little bit dated and stuff. Yeah. But yeah, so Adam Sandler's character, he finds this opal, and he gives it to Kevin Garnett, and Kevin Garnett thinks it has like these mystical properties that allows him to win. So the whole movie kind of revolves around that, and it is, in a word, I think the best word I can use to describe this movie is relentless.
The way I've been describing it is it's Kafka on cocaine.
Can you explain that for the layman?
Sure. So Franz Kafka's stories are always kind of like absurd and weird, and the characters are strange, and the main character of Kafka's stories like never has control of his life, and things always sort of just happen to him. And like there's sometimes a plot, sometimes not, but really like Kafka's stories are more about things like horribly just happening to the people in it, and the person tries to find ways to maybe like get out of it or go to the next thing, but more horrible things just keep happening. And it's very like weird and strange. And this is kind of like that, except Kafka's writing is like much more like mellow and just like more toned down. So it's like if you took the like spirit of like Kafka's world and just like snorted a bunch of coke and put it in there, you'd essentially have this.
Yeah, it's very high energy the whole time. So I wouldn't say it's for everybody, because it's kind of exhausting, but in a, like it's intentionally so, because it's just it filled with adrenaline. There's always something happening. The plot is just always moving forward, and it's like really fast paced. And it's like it makes you feel like you're on a drug high, like Adam Sandler's character, because his drug is gambling. He gets a high from it.
Well, and he basically like he has to have a lot of stress to function. Like he just seems like he's someone whose nerves are so burnt that like he has to put them in this ultra high state to feel anything, you know?
Yeah, I mean, one of the opening sequences is him winning like a big bet, and he finds out about it in his car, and he has this line where he goes, "Oh my God, I'm gonna come," and it sounds like a joke, but then you look in his eyes and you realize, holy, he's not kidding. He's getting a rush from this. And I saw in an interview that apparently there's like a movie detail that apparently they went in with CGI and like shrunk his pupils in that shot, that he's actually getting like a dopamine rush from it.
Interesting.
Yeah, so throughout the course of this movie, Sandler's character, what's his Sandler's character's name? I'm gonna keep on saying Sandler.
Howard Ratner.
Howard Ratner. Anytime he gets even a little bit of money, he just immediately puts it back into a different bet, and he's in with all of these. I love that he's like in debt for all these people, and there's a constant, anytime he's like out in public, there's constantly like people like walking up to him and he's trying to avoid him because he owes them money.
And I like
it's so stressful to watch.
And I like too that like the movie wasn't about like there was no plot of like, oh, I need to pay off all my debts. Like, and you never like kept track of the debts he owed or whatever. Like it was just like it is part of his existence to owe money to people, you know, and it's part of his existence to try to hit huge bets so he can pay those off, you know.
Yeah, to me this movie is just like a documentation of like what it's like to be a junkie essentially. Cuz that's kind of what he is. I mean, the gambling is his addiction, and he can't get enough of it, and he puts everything else above it. He puts family above it. He puts his own health above it, the people that he supposedly cares about it.
Yeah. I like that you call it a documentation because in a lot of ways, I mean, it's as much as it is like a fast-paced, intense movie, like it's shot in a very realistic style. Like it really feels like a part of our world. You know what I mean? Like
yeah,
it's not over stylized to the point of being like so Hollywood. It really does have like a realistic, almost documentary like feel to it.
I think a lot of that has to do with the camera work and the cinematography. I've never been to New York, but I get the sense that it feels like the city of New York itself made this movie. It's weird. There's like this quality to it that brings that city to life in a way that even though I've never been there, I know it's authentic. There's no way it can't be.
Yeah, it's definitely like it's a place that has like a low end, like it's a buzz to it all the time. It's like a weird, like it's almost like a living like organism to its own, you know. And I think you're right. There is like something in that captured in this film, especially like the scenes where they are in the city.
Yeah. And just the technical aspects of this film are all great. I mentioned that the earlier that the score for this movie is incredible. It's this beautiful like synth score, and some of the tracks have like chanting in it and stuff. It makes the movie kind of feel like, along with the way the movie is kind of structured and what it's about, it makes it feel like a fairy tale, like a modern day fairy tale in a way, or a parable.
Yeah, I love that idea of like it being a fairy tale of some kind. That was like totally not what I thought of it when I heard it, but like, and parable I think might even be a better term of it because there's nothing like authentically fantastical in it besides maybe what Garnett feels about the gem.
Sure.
And
you could argue, what's cool is we'll get into spoilers in a second, but you can argue that the gem literally does have magical properties, and you can argue that it doesn't. That's, I think, something that makes it really unique, and we can get into that in a bit. Actually, let's get into that. We can talk more spoilers now.
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, so we both highly recommend this movie. Although I will say, I think it's really interesting because you look at like Letterboxd reviews of this movie, and they're almost all like high praise. And anytime I see like this movie being promoted on Facebook, I always look at the comments, and everybody on Facebook seems to hate this movie. Like, I saw this movie, it was awful, it wasn't funny, it gave me an anxiety attack. Like, I think they were like expecting an Adam Sandler comedy, and they got this.
And they got this instead, just because Adam Sandler's in it. Like, they assume it's gonna be fucking the Happy Gilmore shit or whatever.
Yeah. So I would say if you think you can handle some like high octane energy, fast paced storytelling, definitely check this movie out.
If you're not a little bitch, you should really check this movie out.
Yeah. And I'm not sure. It seems like a really accessible movie to me, I think.
Accessible?
Maybe I'm just more used to that. Accessible
Absolutely.
in terms of like,
no, I think you're right. I mean, it's not complicated.
No, it's simple to follow, but it's from what I get from like Facebook comments that I've seen and things other people have said, it's a bit too much for some people, which I guess is fair if you're not used to this, because it's like walking a tightrope. The movie makes you feel like you're kind of walking on a wire for the whole thing, which I loved. I liked that the movie made me feel feel that.
Yeah.
In a way.
I mean, just like the end itself, you know, like watching.
Well, let's put a spoiler warning real quick. So spoilers this far out. I didn't explicitly say it, so sometimes people get upset because we didn't explicitly say it. So spoilers for here on out. So what were we saying about
but
the
at the end, when he's sort of counting off all of the things he needs to hit in the parlay, like I've not been that stressed watching a movie in so long. Like I was authentically stressed out watching, and it's funny because it was weird because I knew how the game ended, so I wasn't stressed out about the outcome of the game. I was stressed out. I was like, well, this doesn't feel like a movie that's going to end happy. So how the fuck is it going to end even though he pulls off this bet?
Yeah. And especially, I think the reason why, actually, you know what? I think it is a happy ending. Let's talk about the ending real quick. So the whole movie, anytime he gets any winnings, he immediately puts it back. And at the end of the movie, he wins, he wins this, or he gets the money for the opal finally, right, from Kevin Garnett. And and instead of giving it to the loan sharks that are after him, he gives it to his girlfriend, who is great in the movie. What's her name? I can't think of it right now.
Julia Fox is the actress's name.
Yes,
Julia Fox is the actress's name. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. He gives it to her, and he immediately has her put it on this bet for this game. And they set up earlier that door jams, so he figures out that he can like lock these loan sharks in and just force them to watch this game with him, and creates all that stress for that final moment. But the thing is, he wins this bet. He wins the big bet at the end. He gets everything, and he's so elated, so happy. And the second that the loan sharks come out, they shoot him in the head.
Yeah.
But I think we both know, what would he have done with that money? He would have put it right back in there.
Again.
Bet it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because he's a junkie. He can't help himself. And the amount of ecstasy he feels at that moment is when he gets shot. And when they zoom in on his face, he has a big smile on his face. He died happy. Like, this is the best way it could have ended for him, I think.
Like, on that high, on that winning high. And he never saw, like, that coming. So it's like, a happy death.
Yeah, because if he would have lived on, he would have definitely lost his family. He would have lost all of his money. He would have died penniless. He would have been miserable. So I think this is like the best fate for him.
Also, Kayla, like, pointed this out to me. This is such a funny joke. The movie starts coming out of his ass and ends going into his cheek. Like, ass cheek. Like, what a joke. Incredible. That's totally like a conscientious joke by the filmmakers.
Yeah, maybe. But I'm trying to think of, so I think the thing that, like, the opening scene, it starts in Ethiopia.
Yeah.
And you see them dig out this gem. And then it zooms into that gem. You see, like, the universe in a way. You see, like, these beautiful colors and everything. And at that moment, that's when I immediately began to think that this is going to be kind of like a fairy tale kind of a thing. Like, there's this, like, it's like an Indiana Jones opening. There's, like, this magical, mystical object, that's going to be kind of the MacGuffin of the movie in a way.
Right.
And then it zooms out of his colon, because he's getting that colon exam. And I'm curious, like, what were you thinking when you realized that the inside of this opal was turning into, like, the inside of his colon during this exam?
I knew it was turning into the inside of something, and I couldn't tell if it was like a nose or an ear. And the other movie
throat.
I can remember this happening is A Serious Man opens up coming out of the son's ear when he's listening to music.
Those two movies have a lot in common, actually, I think.
Oh, I think so too.
Yeah.
As far as like man who's like life is kind of, it's Kafka. It's like all like Kafka. But I don't know. That's like it had me hooked from the moment we were coming through his ass. Like I just thought it was so funny and like ostentatious, and I don't know. I thought it was an incredible way to start a movie, and a way that like you can't name a lot of movies that start like that, you know? And it's also like in an interesting way, like forefronts his health because he's getting a colonoscopy, you know? So like you're immediately thinking about like his medical like state and his health.
And it ends up being a red herring because I think the Safdies want you to predict that it's going to come back in a way that he's going to maybe the reason why he's has this problem is because he's always stressed out about his having cancer or something. Like there's a lot of subversion in this movie, a lot of like red herrings to sort of like trick you into thinking, oh, you think he's acting this way because he's anxious about not being close to his family, or he's anxious about not about getting cancer, but you find out through the course of the film that no, he's just a junkie. It's just in his blood in a way.
He's just an addict, and like he knows what he's addicted to, like.
And there is a payoff later about the colon thing, and it's just like this nonchalant phone call he gets from his doctor. He's like, oh yeah, you're fine. They even make a joke about it, like, I was so worried because, you know, colon cancer runs in my family, and the doctor says something like, well, colon cancer paid for my house in the Hamptons, or something like that. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
He said something like that, but when that scene happened, I thought that maybe things would change for him, or he would get happier, but it didn't really faze him.
No,
which I thought was interesting.
Just like, I feel like the good things that happen to him aren't good things. They're just like a relief that it's not a bad thing.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Like he takes those good things for granted.
Not for granted. He's just like happy it's not bad. Like, it doesn't register as good news. It just registers as not more bad news. You know what I mean?
Well, he definitely takes his family for granted, I think. Because he doesn't really give a shit about them.
There's some levels to that. For one, obviously their marriage has been on the rocks for a long time. His wife, absolutely, she is disgusted by him. His children.
She's embarrassed by him.
She hates him. She loathes him.
Yeah.
His daughter, like, totally is uninterested in him and disrespects him. Like, she has no respect for him. He does have some moments with his sons, who are like the only people in his whole family that seems to have any sort of level of like respect or value attributed to him. You know?
Well, there's that one son who he got into gambling because he's talking about the game with him and stuff.
Yeah,
so
exactly. He like looks up to him. So I think that is like a big part of it. Like, I think there's this whole like history of that family, you know, that isn't shown in the movie, but like it's pretty explicit, I think, in that like that family dynamic is fucking roasted. I mean, the whole movie, like him and his wife, played by Idina Menzel, are like debating if they should tell the kids they're like gonna divorce, and then Sandler's like always like, no, like let's just wait after Passover, you know, like, and then it becomes like, no, maybe we should wait after till summer's done, like, but they're obviously like not on good terms, you know.
Yeah. And speaking of family, I really enjoyed the fact that you don't find out that like the main loan shark guy that's after him is it his brother-in-law? He's related to
his brother-in-law. Yeah, it's his brother-in-law.
And there's like subtle hints that he's like treating him differently, or like he's giving Adam Sandler like a little bit of wiggle room. And you realize there's something off about this relationship, and then the way they reveal it is just he's at Passover, his dinner at I'm guessing it's Passover, that dinner with his family.
Yeah, that's Passover. Yeah.
Okay.
That's
he's out there, and
yeah.
it just cuts to the guy at the table, and you're like, oh shit, he's related. Like,
yeah, you don't
such a funny moment.
Yeah, like necessarily realize it until then. You're like, oh my god.
Yeah. And then his stepbrother has these two goons that are around him, and you can tell that he's even the stepbrother is intimidated by these goons because these guys are scary guys. And I'm guessing those guys were like real New York dudes, right?
I don't know. I feel like I saw the main hitman before, and they're like, they're like obviously hired hands. I know for sure some of the New York dudes are like the guys that he goes and places bets with. The guy at the end of the movie in the casino that's like hitting on Julia Fox's character.
Yeah.
Who
he
is
was
like
hysterical.
So fucking weird. But such a great character. Like, I was listening to some stuff, like a different podcast that the Safdies were on, and apparently that guy would say things like, he'd be like, I gotta take a shower. I gotta tell you, when I fucking shower, nobody showers better than me. I get so fucking clean in the shower. Like, just saying the weirdest things. Like, not a fucking spot on me is dirty when I step out of that shower.
That guy's name is Wayne Diamond.
Yeah. And there was like another story. He like the scene where he comes out of the shower and like is doing his hair or whatever, and he has the towel on. Apparently originally in the script he was going to be nude, but Wayne Diamond, like, he was like, I could do that nude, I could be nude, but the thing is, I look fucking great with just a towel. Nobody looks better than me with just a towel on, but I'll do it nude if you need me to.
That's hilarious.
Yeah. And the guy that came out and he's just like on the streets, he's like balding with long hair on the sides. He's like, yeah, and then he has like his twin brother, he's like, you brought your heavy. But
yeah.
He was in a movie that the Safdies made before, and it was kind of a similar thing. It was like him going to the apartment. He's like, why is this weird guy outside my apartment? But yeah, he's like a real New York guy. So yeah, they're like all over the film.
Yeah, and they really bring a lot of energy and a lot of they kind of bring the city to life in a way, for sure. What was Good Time? Did that take place in New York, or was that a different city?
Yeah, that was New York because it was in Rikers, which is in New York City. Like, that was in all 5 boroughs of New York City.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm guessing that I think the Safdies are from New York, right? So they have a clear
They're from New York
affection for this movie. And I think I was watching an interview with Adam Sandler, and he's like, apparently the Safdies were trying to get him for like years and years for this movie.
Yeah, they've been writing this movie for 10 years.
It shows. And I mean that in a good way, obviously.
Yeah.
And I think they had Adam Sandler like in mind when they wrote it. And I think Adam Sandler, it wasn't until he watched Good Time that he realized, okay, these guys got it. I'm gonna give them a shot. And
yeah,
the Safdies are so young, and they've made. I mean, I've only seen Good Time in this, and I'm guessing their other work is also excellent. But I loved both of these movies. They have such a unique voice, a very distinct voice. And they're so young too.
Yeah, definitely.
So I can't wait to see what these guys do next. What do you think about the Safdies? What do you think about them that they do the best?
What they do the best?
Yeah, like what are their strengths? What do you appreciate about their style and what they do?
That's an interesting question. I think they create believable characters and like fleshed out worlds. I think it like feels like it feels like almost like cinema verite, like this like documentary form that became popular in like the 60s, where you would follow around like real life, kind of like at the pace of real life, but they do it like in this, I mean, in a manufactured way, right? So that's cool. I think their camera movement is really incredible. Like they're zooming, they're doing like tracking and like handheld moving shots with a super long lens. So it's creating this weird, like the character's moving, but it looks like nothing around him is moving. Like, I think their visual
a lot of
style is
too.
so, it's loose in a way that they experiment in. Yeah. Well, and some of that is like, you know, when you're in that small little jewelry store, you got to do a lot of close-ups. Like the spaces they're in requires the close-ups. And a part of that too is like those lenses are long. Like that whole movie obviously was shot in anamorphic because it's got that widescreen. But like all of those, they're probably using like a 75 or more for almost everything they shot. Like those were just, they were tight. Yeah, I think they just like create such a believable world, and they have such a sort of free experimental visual style. They just remind me like the best of what New York independent cinema has made. It's like Cassavetes or like Shirley Clark or like Ackerman when she was around, but obviously some of those are a little more like laconic than the Safdie brothers, but they just like, they take that energy of the city and they throw it in there, but they also like really care about like people of the city, you know? Like I appreciate that mix. What about you? What do you think they do the best?
Well, I agree that they have very rich, believable characters, but again, I've only seen this in Good Time, but both these movies have a similar feel and tone to them that it's hard for me to even describe. Like it feels like dirty and chaotic, but in a very controlled way. I think a lot of that has to do with the pacing of their pacing of their movies is really incredible. It's fast paced without being jarring at all. Like it makes it very, very engaging. Like I wasn't bored for a single second of either of those movies. I think in terms of screenplay, they're really good at subverting expectations. There's a twist about the brother character in Good Time, I'm sure you know what I'm talking about, that I did not expect coming, and I remember, like, do you know what I'm talking about? I don't want to spoil it.
Yeah, no, go for it.
He gets his. Okay, I wasn't sure if you knew what I was talking about. So, like, when that happened, I remember I stood up in my chair because I was like, "What? This movie is going there? Like, holy crap!" And with this movie as well, there is some subversion stuff that I didn't expect coming, and it avoids a lot of cliches. Like, you don't see, there's not like a cliche like loan shark scene where like they try to cut off one of his fingers or something like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or,
yeah. And the loan shark scene, they do that is cliche where they're like chasing him around and he ends up like undressed in the car. It's done in such a funny new way. You know, it's injected with so much humor.
Yeah.
That it like becomes something totally different and so much more enjoyable than just being shown like all the regular beats.
And I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that the main guy that's after him is his stepbrother, because they're not trying to hurt him or kill him. They're like annoyed by him and they just want to like scare him, kind of, which is kind of neat to watch.
Well, I mean, they definitely like, they want their money, you know, at the core of it.
Yeah.
They like he's too far in debt, you know?
Yeah. And they're pissed off at him, but they're more like annoyed by him because he put their money into a bet that he won a lot of money. And then he finds out that they canceled the bet because they want their money.
Yeah.
And that causes him so much anxiety because it's like, oh, God damn it, I won that bet. You know, what do you think this stands in by the other movies that they've made? Do you think this is their strongest film, or what do you think?
Oh, this is by far their strongest film. Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
I think like they're it just felt so realized and so lived in, and you could really, and like everything I've heard too, you know, is like they kind of everything they've been making to this point is trying to build up like clout to be able to make this. Like this has been their baby for so long.
I was just gonna say, I really hope that Adam Sandler, I've seen interviews with him, and he seems to really have genuine affection for the Safdie brothers after making this movie. And I hope that he like joins them and makes more movies with them, because he's such a perfect match for their style, and he does such a great job in this movie. So I'm really curious to see what they do next. I sent you a link. They made a short film with Adam Sandler while they were making this, I think, called Goldman versus Silverman.
I liked it.
Did you watch that? Yeah,
I liked it a lot. Yeah, I did.
Yeah, it was fun.
It was short. Like obviously it's a short film, but it's like very contained, and that was Benny. The silver guy was Benny.
Yeah. He was in Good Time, right? He played the brother. Okay. Yeah. So yeah, highly recommend. Yeah. This is
He has a part in Uncut Gems too, right?
Does he? I don't think so. I didn't catch him. He has a very recognizable face. I didn't see him. I'm not sure.
Maybe not.
Yeah. So I think that about wraps up our discussion for Uncut Gems. What would you give this a star rating out of 5?
5 stars for sure. I think this is, like I said, like the second best movie of the year, and I think Uncut Gems and Parasite are the 2 solid 5-star movies I've seen in 2019.
And such different movies too. It really shows you a wide range of what cinema can do, I think. Because Parasite is like watching a surgery compared to this movie. This is like watching somebody get beaten with a hammer.
It's completely different. It's completely different. That's such a great analogy. Surgery versus being beat with a hammer.
Okay, so go watch Uncut Gems, and if you can find it in a theater near you, definitely go and check it out. It is a good time, much like their movie Good Time.
Absolutely.
Okay, so for next episode, I think we're going to be doing an episode that you recorded with one of your old professors. Is that right?
Yeah, we'll be. So we watched Salo, or the 120 Days of Sodom, which, like, I don't know, I'll trigger warning it or something, but it's a pretty like intense movie. So like I would recommend not seeing it to most people.
Considered
honestly.
one of the most controversial
but
movies
if you're
of
really
all
into
time. Yeah.
Absolutely. It's like, and all I'm really saying with that is like it's not for everyone, and it's pretty hard to watch.
Yeah.
But we talk about that, and then we generally talk about like an idea of like oppositional or radical cinema. So yeah, it'll be a bit of a change of pace, but we both really enjoyed it, and I think it's a really solid podcast. So I'm excited to have it released.
Yeah, I think you had some technical issues when you were recording, so we'll see how that turns out. Worst case scenario, it'll be us back again, and it'll be a movie of your choice. So we'll figure that out off the air if that happens. But
always the worst case scenario is a movie of my choice.
Well, we haven't done a lot of choice movies because there's been so many like Oscar movies lately. So it's been a while since you've gotten to choose one. So I'll see it in 2 episodes if we get that to work. So next week with your old professor.
Yeah, for sure. See you then.
All right. See you then.
Here we go. You talking to me?
What we've got here is failure to communicate.
You just put it in the right file.
I am serious, and don't call me Shirley.
Oh, hi, Mark.
I'm as mad as hell, and I'm not going to take this anymore.
Gentlemen, you can't fight in here. This is the war room.
I drink your milkshake.
Okay, so we're gonna do something different this week. Jared here. We have no Leo, and I'll stop clicking my pen. Here interviewing a professor I had when I was in school, Dr. Andrea Gyenge. She's a lecturer in the Department of Cultural Studies and Comparative Literature at the University of Minnesota and adjunct faculty at MCAD, as well as a future postdoctoral fellow at University of Toronto, Mississauga. And that'll be happening in the summer of 2020.
Mm-hmm.
So,
thank you for having me. Hello, thank you for having me. We've been wanting to do this for a long time.
Yeah, I'm super excited that we get to do it. So I guess we can kind of just like start with like where we met as sort of the jumping off point for our discussion. So we met in a class that you taught called Oppositional Cinemas. Do you kind of just want to
talk about that course?
Talk about the course, like the point of it and what we covered. And
so I taught that course when I was still a graduate student, before I finished my PhD, and it was in spring 2016. And it's a course that's kind of been on the books in our department for a while, though actually it's no longer available. It's been changed. And the basic idea of the course is to try to teach students to think about cinema as a kind of oppositional practice or art, broadly defined. So that can mean something like revolutionary, third world, anti-imperialist cinemas that have really explicit political projects. That could be cinemas where their oppositionality is expressed formally, so something like the projects of surrealist cinema or Dadaist cinema, or things that happen in the early 20th century. Oppositionality in terms of films that are produced in regions of the world that are heavily contested politically, and cinema is kind of the place to think through the questions of those politics. And when I taught the course, that was kind of the way that I approached it, was to think about oppositionality through all these different kinds of forms and methods, and to think about the way that it's kind of through film language that these films articulate their resistance to something. But if you remember, what I really wanted to do in the course was also to ask the question, oppositional in relation to what, right? Because oppositionality suggests that there is some kind of intended critical target, right? And so what I did with the class is I started with fascist cinema. So that's, of course, Leni Riefenstahl's Triumph of the Will. Here thinking about cinema's capacity to kind of, seduce and enthrall an audience into an ideological project like fascism. But also after that, we watched The Matrix, which is, kind of the Hollywood, variant of, a super popular, blockbuster film that had its own pretensions to oppositionality. But you remember from that class, we discovered that The Matrix, had its own kind of conformist, whatever form, right? It wasn't a very inventive film when we started mapping it onto, the standard Hollywood sort of, cookie cutter product. And so because it's either fascist cinema or the Hollywood apparatus that tends to be the target of a lot of oppositional filmmaking, though not exclusively, I really wanted in that class to have the students have a sense of, what does it mean to interrogate film language, and, what are the stakes and for whom and why. And I think in each film, in each unit, tried to sort of deal with that question. So I don't know if you want to talk about, what that class meant for you, or like how you came in and out of the oppositionality question in that class.
I will So I think for me in general, this class was like very big for me as far as like what I wanted to end up producing, because I came to it as a filmmaker, not just a film theorist, and not just someone who wanted to study film. Like I came in with a very distinct desire to have it inform my actual praxis.
Yeah.
And I think it's very, very hard now to imagine an idea of like oppositional anything or a radical anything or a different anything. It's just, it feels like either everything's been done, everything has been approached, what has been approached is unapproachable or unsayable. So, and there's a thing you said that I don't remember if it was in the class itself or like in our discussions, maybe afterwards or after the class itself, but you said generally this idea of like oppositional cinema or radical cinema and the role of the artist in that space is to redefine the limits of the possible. And this is like probably generally how I think of like art now as an entirety, that like what actual good art does is it in some way redefines the limits of the possible. It articulates a new vision. And that's like sort of the plan of like radical or oppositional cinema. That was like the biggest thing I got out of it. But then, and this is the thing, sort of the catch-22 of studying oppositional cinema, is sort of everything that has been shown has somehow been digested.
Yes.
So surrealism obviously is like, now the world of advertisement owns surrealism, totally. Right? It's so easy for like Gucci or Dolce & Gabbana or Prada, any large brand.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
There are some things in there that I think approach maybe an indigestible stance, like Von Trier's The Idiot stands out to me.
Which we watched.
Which we did, yeah. That was Decasia in some ways did, by, who made that again?
Bill Morrison.
Bill Morrison. Did we see that movie together? He had one at the Walker?
Yeah, we saw his new film.
His new film, I remember going to see that.
Yeah, and then we saw Decasia in class.
Yeah. That might have been something undigestible. So, like, I guess my follow-up question to that, like, going on this idea of digestibility and sort of, like, being consumed by what it's attacking. So there's two bracketed questions, I guess, I have for this. One of them is oppositional cinema and radical cinema different? And does oppositional cinema or radical cinema have to be inherently reactive?
Right.
Or can it be generative on its own terms?
Right.
Or is it always responding to something? Yeah.
Yeah, so there are sort of different things to say about that. I think, one would be to define what is meant by radical cinema. I think most people would associate radical cinema with left cinema. So these are various kinds of cinemas, particularly in the 1960s, that saw cinema as the avenue to articulate a particular kind of leftist politics, whether that's the politics of the working class, an anti-imperialist politics, so that would be cinema that is really much more pedagogical and has a very particular intent in terms of cinema's relationship to something like revolution, right? But that has an expressed leftist commitment. But oppositional cinema, which is why I actually like the term oppositional better than I like radical cinema, because I think oppositional cinema leaves open the possibility of saying that there are ways that a film can contest reality or open up the limits of the possible that aren't necessarily about being committed to a particular set of outcomes or leftist positions. That, when we look at someone like Stan Brakhage, who I included in the American Experimental Week that we did, he was someone who, when he made Mothlight, he makes this film, tapes all this stuff to the celluloid because he's too poor to have his celluloid, processed. So he comes up with this mode of basically projecting light through, unprocessed celluloid to create, an incredibly beautiful image that really hadn't been seen before. And, but Stan Brakhage, I wouldn't consider him an expressly political filmmaker, even though, he had a lot of things to say about that. And so for me, I think oppositional cinema is maybe the place to think about something other than reactionary cinema, because I'm with you in the sense that, a reactionary cinema in some ways remains glued to the status quo because it kind of, is pushing against it or testing it or poking holes in it. But at the end of the day, its entire form and its content is determined by that kind of dialectic. And for me, and I don't remember saying this, but it seems completely in line with what I would say, which is that, the limits of the possible really are about, cinema's utopian potential. But its utopian potential is, always tied, of course, I think, to its more darker ideological potential, because, utopia isn't about, some express project of the future, like, this is what a utopian society would look like. Utopia is about, it's about the image of the future we haven't yet imagined. So, it really is about thinking about oppositionality in relationship to utopia. Because when we talk about utopia, we always think, it's an image of a perfect society that will someday come to fruition, and everything that is, unbearable about, human life and human inequality will somehow come to an end. That tends to be the more banal understanding of utopia. For me, cinema, because it is a place of image making, a place of fantasy and of desire and of creating worlds that don't exist, is always bound up in that question of like, how do we imagine the otherwise, or imagine or stretch the limits of the possible through the kind of the potential that's inherent in the image. But as you point out, the problem is that the image has been colonized and digested and tamed. And, there's this moment in Wim Wenders' film, the one where he goes back to Tokyo. It's called Tokyo Story.
Yeah,
to find Ozu's images.
Meditating on Ozu.
Yeah, it's a great film.
Trying to recreate it in
that
some way.
Most people don't really see. But he has this moment, I think it's with Werner Herzog, maybe. Or it's either Werner Herzog or somebody else that he's having this conversation. And he says something like, are there any images anymore?
Right.
And I think it's Werner Herzog responds and says, well, what we really have to do is, you can only now go out into space and film out there.
Right.
This idea that, are there true images anymore? Because what would be a true image would be one that, would be radical enough to like change the coordinates of things. And,
right.
What's worth noting as well is that our class that January was, the year of 2016, which was Trump's election.
Yeah.
But it happened prior to that. And
right.
I think I just remember us laughing here and there about, Trump and like how ridiculous it seemed. And, I almost think like what would have happened if I had taught oppositional cinema in 2017, because I never taught it again after that. And now the course has been retitled, which I don't really agree with. But, this is... this is ever the more an urgent question now, right? Like, what does cinema as a kind of resistant or oppositional art form, what does it do now when it seems like every possible difference of the future has been just
right.
eliminated?
Well, and this is like interesting too in direct relationship for me for like Trump, or you could say like maybe Bolsonaro or take like other strongmen and right-wing leaders. Is there's like a specific like difference in these right-wing leaders in that they're not necessarily trying to like purely uphold this sort of like symbolic order. They're also like purposefully vulgar and purposefully in their own ways oppositional.
Yeah.
Right? They in their own ways sort of destroy what we think of as like proper manners, as like the like mainstream ideological apparatus. So like I guess my question with that too is like a lot of the things we watched in those films, its oppositionality was directly sort of related to this destruction of good taste or like manners. Totally. But then if those exact same moves are being done by someone like a Trump, like how does that, what is the new sort of play for an authentic oppositionality?
Yes. No, that's great. I think that's a really nice critique because it's that we saw that in so many of the films, right? That were kind of attacking bourgeois middle-class sensibilities. That was certainly the case in von Trier's film, right? Which is basically, about what a group of people who are imitating the mentally handicapped.
Which is funny enough, one of Trump's big moves was imitating the mentally handicapped.
Right, in that terrible...
blasted, right?
Totally, blasted for that.
How is that different than what von Trier's doing in The Idiots?
In The Idiots, absolutely, right? But like in The Idiots, it's supposed to be some sort of critique where, everybody who, kind of reacts to this group of people, really politely and really politically correct. Remember that moment in the film when they come out to meet the woman who wants to buy the house next door, and she's all very nice and she's kind of patronizing and acting in this way until she's told that the mentally handicapped people actually live next door and like to come over a lot, and suddenly she's like starts to act very differently. And that's a beautiful moment in the film where I think von Trier like unveils a certain type of hypocrisy vis-a-vis the kind of political correct response to mentally handicapped people or disabled people, I guess is probably the more correct term. So exactly, like there's something, and this is, I think, a very difficult conversation to have because I think most people are deeply committed to a notion of like good political taste or like proper behavior, or this idea that somehow politics is the domain of reason. And then like Trump has shown up, and like what's wrong with Trump is that he's inserted grotesquerie into politics, or like inserted bad manners or poor taste or something into what is otherwise an agreed upon space, the public sphere, where we all kind of enter it, with the best of our kind of faculties, which is a very old idea.
Which is like a liberal
a
idea,
total
right?
liberal
Like
idea.
a Hannah Arendt sort of like ancient Greece.
Absolutely,
this
absolutely. And this is
back.
it's very old, right? And so actually a friend of mine was going to do a panel at a conference, ended up not going through, but I thought it was a really brilliant idea because it's exactly what you're saying, that, thinking about the roots of the grotesque vis-a-vis politics, and it's referencing a Foucault citation from a text I don't remember, maybe it's about, I don't know, it's one of the later lectures where Foucault's talking about the relationship between the grotesque and politics and how it's somehow, that it is not an intrusion into politics, but rather somehow endemic to the very political order, the political sphere, which is...
Sorry to cut that off. Like the liberal political sphere or like all political spheres?
I think he's saying the liberal political sphere, but I don't know for sure. I'd have to, we didn't think of it, so I'd have to look at the quotation.
Sure.
And I didn't actually quite even understand what Foucault was necessarily critiquing or thinking about there. But I think it opens up this question of, if we're going to critique someone like Trump, and more so think about this in the domain of cinema, this question of oppositionality in relation to, say, good taste, that opens up some very serious questions about, what does oppositionality look like now? And, we haven't quite, brought up the film we're going to talk about today, but I think that in some ways that film is dealing with that question very much so.
Because it wraps up these ideas of taste. And,
Yes. So, I remember though in oppositional cinema, somebody said something like, kind of annoyed, frustrated, because a lot of the films, they pile up on the weeks, and you get kind of like worn out. Somebody said, God, like, why do the images always have to be so disturbing, And that was, I think, in response to Benoit and Dali's, Un Chien Andalou, and, like the cutting of the eyeball. Sorry to ruin it for anybody who's never seen that moment. If you remember, I told everybody that there's the before and after you see that film. So they were kind of frustrated, and I think that was actually a legitimate critique, like frustrated with feeling like the only mode of oppositionality was this kind of pushed back against one's comfort or good taste or something like that, and a kind of what might be understood as a kind of negative aesthetic, the aesthetic of disgust or shock or horror or something like that.
Right.
Even though I think something like Un Chien Andalou, is, its shock is within a very particular moment in time vis-a-vis, a set of aesthetics in its moment. Even though now I think people still find it quite difficult to watch that scene.
Well, and I think it's hard though too, like, I mean, there's this very specific placement, right, of a lot of those films that I think of when I think of the shock films, and they're sort of are between the two world wars.
Yes.
But there's an immediacy there because a lot of them come from Europe, and that's where like the theater of war was happening. Yeah. So there's this sort of like lived experience of shock that's happening there and then being commented on. But then if you come to like 21st century America, where we are so distanced already from most of what is shocking, like we are our consumption of shock is already mediated through a screen before it's even there. Like there's not that reality of seeing something blown up in front of us. Everything we see blown up is on the television, right? So it's hard to, I think, that shock doesn't necessarily work on our brains the same way because that's how we've always digested shock.
Yes. No, and I think that's, a kind of, and that's been talked about extensively. Like it's been talked about even, before 9/11, it was talked about during the Gulf War. It was, Baudrillard wrote about, the Gulf War and the images, of death and spectacle, and it being kind of arriving, on a television, and what that means vis-a-vis, an experience of, of unthinkable violence. And then you have something like 9/11, which for the majority of people in this country did take place on a television screen, and is how most people remember it, unless you were in New York at the time, which, also seems, as many people said in the moment, which I always think is a remarkable kind of thing, is people saying, God, it really felt like the movies.
Yeah.
And that, says something to us about the relationship between, the moving image and our understanding of reality, that, it's not really anymore that the moving image reflects or expresses a reality that stands outside of it, but that reality is basically constructed through our, through the moving image, which is really an epistemological kind of problem. It's like, that's how we understand the world now.
Right.
Is through the photographic moving image, and that comes to be how we know it.
Right.
And I think that's kind of the remarkable event of the 20th century. Serge Daney in Histoire du Cinéma, in a moment with Godard, says something like, you know, the 20th century was a love affair with the cinema.
Yeah.
And that, you know, comes to form everything around how we remember the past, how we imagine the future. Certainly it's the case through photography. I mean, the 20th century is arguably remembered and indexed through some of its most famous images, which have themselves become cliches, which I find to be just like a fascinating and ongoing process of just sort of understanding our historical moment.
A lot of Godard's early work itself is sort of following young French people learning how to recreate and define themselves according to the cinema they're watching.
Yes.
Like a lot of it is
Yes.
them, Belmondo trying to somehow like be Humphrey Bogart,
Yes.
putting his like hands over his lips like that and like looking at that
Yeah.
poster and like a lot of that is always them kind of repositioning and repurposing themselves according to the American culture that's like becoming their reality.
So I actually applied to go to this conference in Germany in June, and the conference topic, it's called Tacit Cinematic Knowledges, and it's basically a conference precisely about this idea not only that, you know, when we imagine reality or think through it, in terms of the past or whatever, that we think cinematically, but that in fact cinema has more or less moved into all sorts of kinds of domains of life that we don't even imagine that actually exist beyond the image. So I think they cite Marcel Mauss, noting a woman walking down the hall in a way that imitated a certain way of walking in the cinema. Or, a comment about seeing war and seeing like you're watching the cinema, or, that thing of, the gesture of the French youth imitating Humphrey Bogart, right, in their kind of everyday gestures. And I think for me, that's absolutely fascinating, to think about cinema, not just as something, we see in the movies or at home on our screen, but the ways in which it infiltrates, down to the very like gestures of being. And I think that is also like a true like historical shift, right? That it becomes, the cinema becomes, integrated into the structure of life, right? Into the structure of bodies, or speech, or how we look, which is, again, like the question of oppositionality there then becomes very interesting. Like this idea that, you could produce a cinema that wouldn't change how people think, but it might change how people walk.
Right.
Or change how people sit, or change how people occupy a space, right? Like that I find extraordinarily interesting, and provocative and promising.
Sorry, it's just gonna like fuck up the audio. Yeah.
Okay. So I think that's, maybe something to think about. And I'm very interested right now. We talk about this, I see a lot of the films that are coming out, and I'm always kind of interested right now in like how is oppositionality articulated in contemporary cinema, especially American cinema or, more popular cinema. And I think that, I don't know if I can really name anybody that I think is doing this in a really compelling way right now.
Oppositional cinema, you mean?
Yeah. And, this is going back to your question of like, what does oppositionality even look like now? What does it mean to have the undigestible?
Well, so there's like something there I'm like interested in, because I think a lot of oppositionality is always sort of talked about on these lines of like changing thought. Mm-hmm. Whereas like when we talk about like utopia or these ideas of like creating a different world, like I would argue at least, and there's like discussions about this, but like changing actions sometimes
sure.
immediately affects the world in a different way.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Like, and sometimes doing creates an understanding that understanding on its own could never have created.
Yes.
I think of like, like if you go to visit like a commune, you would understand a lot more about communal living than you ever would reading about it.
Sure.
Sure. And you would understand the problems that come up, and you understand how people find a way to create solutions to that. And like, so, you know what I mean? So this sort of like, the actual material reality and the actual actions of people sort of generates these new thoughts rather than these thoughts generating a material reality.
Right. And I think, that's where you can think about cinema in relation to other modes of art, performance art or installations, where what sometimes, and it obviously really depends on the artist or the project, but are attempting to rearrange, people's sensoriums, or the way that you encounter a museum space, or, that are attempting to bring about, an event, in you, that really isn't about, you know, your mode of thought or what you believe or, you know, your ethics or whatever. It really is about, you know, something taking place out of the ordinary vis-a-vis the way that you think about sound, or you think about smell or texture, or your physical body in certain kinds of spaces. I mean, all of that stuff is historical. All of that stuff is striated. All of that stuff, you know, is you know, very much a product of its moment. And, you know, I think that good art or interesting art, you know, tries to, you know, open up a place to question that, you know.
Right.
Even if it is in a very small, minute way, right? If it really is just about when you are encountering the artwork. And this is, you know, that history of participatory art and, you know, all of these things vis-a-vis the question of the audience. And cinema is part of that history, even though it is, you know, arguably a much different art because it is, you know, global, because it is, you know, on the screen, because it is, you know, so different in some ways. It is the master art, you know, it's kind of like the, you know, the sort of the echelon.
It's also much more accessible than a lot of the other arts.
Absolutely.
It's you know, 95% of people that you would get into a cinema would never go into a sensorium or some sort of museum space.
Right, or an installation or some performance art or something like that. And it's true. It's, you know, and I think that's why so many leftist movements in particular were so interested in cinema, because they saw cinema, you know, as much as it had a fascistic potential, it also had a profoundly democratic potential, right? And so they saw its democratic potential as also being linked to its pedagogical, you know, potential, that like rather than handing out a pamphlet, you could make a revolutionary film, or you could, that a film, because of the way that it communicates, could galvanize people to action in a way that, you know, that other forms couldn't, and they really saw the potential there. Though, you know, if you remember when we read the Third Cinema Manifesto, you know, these questions came up, even in the manifesto, of like, okay, we make this radical film, but like, what about distribution? You know, like all of a sudden these like real material concerns come up, which is like, you know, but like what happens if only 20 people see it, right? Like there is this question of numbers, there's this question of, you know, and we know how heavily that's controlled, right? I mean, one of the fights we have at the U of M that we've been dealing with is this idea that, you know, we don't need DVD players or VHS players in the classroom because everything is streamable.
Right.
And you and I know that's not true.
That's not true.
That's not even close to being true.
Right.
You know, it's like 10% or 5% of what's available is streamed.
Right.
You know, and so much of that is controlled by the studios and, you know, copyright and all of this stuff. Like, you know, and even things like what's on Criterion, you know, which is amazing, but there's a certain understanding. There's a limit there because there's a certain understanding of cinematic importance, right?
Right.
Of this idea that it belongs to the history of cinema in a certain way. And, you know, but what about those films that are like, you know, there's so many of them, and it's that stuff that, you know, the process of archiving is also, of course, part of that. So, you know, things are not uniformly democratically available, and you can't just, and you know that too, as, you know, someone who's trying to make a film, you know, on lower budgets, you know, like it's not easy.
Well, lower budgets automatically, I mean, people tune out. People have such a high quality of standards for film that they watch that if it doesn't meet a certain threshold, it's automatically tuned out.
Yeah.
And that's not, I don't think that's a bad thing, but that's part of the fact of like making cinema is that there is like a standard of quality. And if you don't meet that standard of quality, you're automatically eliminated at a certain potential.
Yeah. Didn't that come up with L'Art von Trier where some of the students were like, this film's not very good?
Yeah.
they're like, the quality.
They're like, it's blown out.
Yeah, like, but it's a you know, it's a Dogma 95 film. Their entire manifesto was about not taking up that, you know, that tendency to just make a film slick, you know, they saw that as bourgeois.
Right. Yeah. Do you think that's like true in a way? Like, does slickness or sort of like craftsmanship, can that get in the way of like oppositional or radical potential?
Yes, I mean, this is the debate I've been having about Parasite.
Right.
The debate I've been having with people about Parasite is that, you know, I think it's a excellently made film. It's, as you say, well crafted. It, you know, blends different forms of genres quite deftly and brilliantly. It, you know, it's surprising, it's provocative, it, you know, like offers this meditation on social class. But I really wanted that film. I didn't like the fact that it was so well crafted.
Right.
That, as my friend puts it, that the ends of it were kind of neatly tucked under.
Right.
Because for me, if you're going to open up a question of a critique of social class, in this case in South Korea, you have to also ask the question, of, okay, so what does cinema have to do with this question?
Right.
Because cinema is bound up in the question of ideology. And if, in what way is something like a well-crafted, seamless, like beautiful kind of art cinema itself, not letting it kind of, it's not putting itself on the line. Right. It seems to me in that way then complicit in something.
Right.
Because it won't risk its own aesthetic.
Right.
And by not risking its own aesthetic, that's where I'm like, but isn't that, part of what the film is trying to say? And so it's this kind of, I wanted it to like completely and totally like disturb form. I wanted it to like disintegrate. I wanted like it to have some kind of madness. Like I wanted it to open up some kind of future. But instead it just like, slickly claustrophobically enclosed its entire social critique into a perfect little film.
And so there's like two things there. One of them is that this idea of, it's coming back to the idea of like that negative aesthetics that we talked about earlier, that like, that might in some ways be passé oppositionally.
Right.
So, and then in another way, like, so what you're saying about like, it's sort of being like neatly tucked in and well crafted, is that only on the level of aesthetics, or is that also on the level of like the story it's telling? And like, is that part of the form, as in like the shots themselves are well composed, or is it the form as in like the story itself is hitting these points on a plot level?
Right. I mean, I think that, so the argument that I've been having, or the debate that I've been having, is whether the film is aware of the fact that its own formal kind of tightness, like, is that the broader, does that have a metaphorical or allegorical moment in it?
Right.
Where what it's saying is, look, when we're going to open up a critique of class here, and we're going to do that within the confines of late capitalism, the precise point is that there is no exit here.
Right.
That claustrophobically, the whole thing will neatly and safely enclose upon itself, not letting us out, as it were.
Right.
And I agree, I see that critique in Parasite. I see how that could be part of the film's formal kind of gesture in relation to the plot points, right? That's how the form and the content kind of work together in order to articulate that critique. But for me, in order for that to be taking place, I would want somehow, and I don't really know how that would work in terms of what the film does, some registration or like registry of the film knowing that that is its critique, rather than, in some ways being a little bit too self-congratulatory or too sort of, taking too much pleasure in its cinematic finesse. Because I don't trust cinematic finesse. I mean, maybe people would accuse me of this, because, I do have an attachment to a negative aesthetic.
Right.
I do still feel that, certain forms of, disintegration on screen do things.
Yeah.
And that I wanted that film to do that. Finesse scares me.
Well, in my, like one of my favorite, probably my favorite film, right? Persona by Bergman is like incredibly well crafted and beautifully shot. But there are moments, the film literally, burns itself.
Yes,
and, eats itself up.
Exactly.
So there is this moment of disintegration that can even take place within this super well crafted thing.
Absolutely.
And that's where I think it becomes more of a plot point than a craft point, right? Like if, I don't know, I compared it to Buñuel earlier, but Buñuel probably authentically would have, halfway through the film, all the characters playing the poor people would suddenly be the rich people, and all the actors playing the rich people would suddenly be the poor people, and the story would just go on. But then you'd have that itch throughout the rest of the movie where you're like, wait a second, all of these actors are not the people I was used to. Yes. You know what I mean?
Yes, and that's beautiful, right? Because what's beautiful about that is it's not just disturbing your expectations for the film, but suddenly your those that way that you cathect to certain characters and whatever just gets flipped upside down.
Fucked. Yeah.
It gets totally fucked up, and all of a sudden ideologically you're like, the film rejects you.
Right.
Right. It's a moment. And
while still maintaining a sort of aesthetic beauty that isn't alienating.
Exactly. So it's alienating at the level of this trick that it plays, but maybe not alienating at the level of, the film's, construction, its cinematography or anything like that, where you still admire it and say, what an extraordinary film, right? But it is still, kind of rejecting you in another way, and demanding something from you politically. And I think for me, I like demanding films, right? Like, I like films that, you know, that want something from me, or that take something from me, or conversely push me away, or, you know, as I sometimes joke, like, I like to not feel my face, you know? But, you know, even though I'm someone who, like, I hate horror films, like, there's certain modes of this I don't like.
Right.
But there are some films where, you know, I really think that they've done something interesting.
Do you think this is, like, always a sort of gesture that happens on the political level, or can this sort of be worked out in, like, existential, personal, like, spiritual level as well?
Sure. I mean, I think, you know, that's Bergman, right? Like, Bergman is very much that, I think.
Michael Haneke,
yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, you know, and I mean, it's always the question, of course, of like where the political ends and begins, right? I mean, I think the argument would be that, you know, if we think of politics as a question of what's to do with the common or the communal, or, you know, the question of, you know...
Which the cinema in the 20th century always was. Part of the common and the communal, but that experience of the cinema is changing, which is, like, part of the reason... There's a level of it where it's still communal.
Yes.
But only in the fact that after the fact people talk about it communally on the internet. But a lot of people now ingest cinema alone.
Right, alone in their house, just like, you know, we were watching this here.
And that some way has to change.
Yes.
That changes everything.
Yes.
Right? The delivery mode has to change everything.
Yes. Yeah, and I think that's the whole other part of, you know, this streaming question is, like, on the one hand, yes, you know, the bulk of what we might want to see is not available on streaming. And yet, obviously, streaming is the dominant platform through which we, you know, watch cinema now. And, you know, there are arguments to be made that, you know, what we do here, that this isn't cinema, right? Or, you know, what even the digital image is vis-a-vis the celluloid image. And, like, we watched, you know, this film on Blu-ray, right? And it was just, like, so sharp, clean. Beautiful, crisp, clean. Like, and then, and you know, in that moment, what you see is you're like, oh, it's actually on Blu-ray that the film comes across in its own celluloid nature most authentically. And that's, of course, like a paradox.
Right.
And purists would say that that's, you know, ridiculous, and that, you know, you really should just, quote, see it on 35, or that thing that we now say is like, ooh, it's going to be on 35 millimeter, like, whatever that means, right? And so, but it's interesting to see that when you see it on Blu-ray, that there's such a commitment to restoring the image as it was shot on celluloid, that, you know, I really think you can't oppose them to each other. Just like maybe then you can't oppose streaming to seeing things in the theater, right? That there are always things that you miss when you see things in a theater, or vice versa. I mean, I am old school. I do think some films really just should be seen on the big screen, you know?
Yeah. They're crafted with, like, that size of an image in mind.
Yeah, and it just has a different effect at the end of the day, you know, especially because it's not easy to get up. It's not easy to stop. It's not easy, you know, you're kind of enclosed, you know, Bart writes about this, you know, in The Cocoon, right, where you're kind of your eyes are glued to the cinema. And, you know, some films really depend on that formally, you know, that you can't just get up and go or look at your phone.
A lot of early cinematic critique required that as sort of, like, its idea of how, like the entire idea, right, of, like, the male gaze is, like, part and parcel of this, like, you're in a black box, and suddenly all of your other, like, senses have been, like, subsumed to the main character of this film you're watching. Yeah,
and that's precisely what creates the possibility for ideological capture, right? This idea that you then identify with the ego ideal on screen, and, you know, you kind of become fused with them, and then, you know, and then you're out in the street, you know, kind of trying to, like, you know, de-poison yourself, or like, kind of, like, detox from this, like, weird experience that you've had.
Right. Interesting. Let's get into Salo.
All right, should we tell them what we watched for the second time?
For the second time together. This film. Salo, or 120 Days of Sodom.
Why did we decide to watch this film originally?
The first time?
Yeah. Neither of us had seen it. Right.
It feels like sort of a rite of passage. It's like a cinephile sort of necessity.
Yeah, and it's legendary. I mean, in that little booklet, it says it's a film that's more known for not being seen than being seen. Right.
Yeah. I mean, Pasolini was murdered, like, after making it. It was banned all over the place.
Yeah.
And he coming into this had made some communist cinema, but had just came off his trilogy of life, which in a lot of ways is, I think maybe trying to be oppositional in a positive way.
Yeah.
Like trying to reconstitute pleasure and joy in a sort of oppositional, radical way.
Yeah.
Right? But then he saw that itself be subsumed.
Yeah.
As like all things are, right?
Yeah.
And it seems like in a way, like kind of going to this negative aesthetic, which Salo obviously is, like there's maybe something more easily subsumable about like joy or pleasure, and that like it can be recrafted and like the knockoff can be sold easier.
Yes.
But there's still a sense, like horror is a great example of the negative being repurposed as a knockoff.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely. I mean, I find horror cinema very interesting, even though I, have trouble watching it. But, I mean, when I first saw this and we watched it together, I think I remember the different parts of it. I remember parts that were disgusting or like hard to deal with. But I remember thinking at the end of it that it wasn't somehow as like grotesque or claustrophobic or just obscene, the first time. And then now seeing it the second time, I was like, this film is unbelievable.
It's disgusting.
I mean, it's like, what I felt like was that I no longer had the language or have the language to talk about this film.
Yeah.
And I think, comparatively speaking, we can point to films that exist now that would be much worse than this one. What is the Human Centipede series, the Saw series, right? There are many films.
Like a pure snuff film.
Like, there are existing, even just like popular cinemas that arguably are much more grotesque than this film.
Yeah, absolutely.
And yet, I found it this second time very difficult to watch. Very challenging. And I don't know, I guess I could talk about how that is, or why that's done. I don't know how you felt watching it.
I think kind of like bridging it into it, the first thing I was like interested by it is kind of this idea of like the negative aesthetic and like taste in general.
Yeah.
So like the film itself, like what is presenting, right? Like eating shit, like people eating nails, like,
everything.
Violent sexual assault, like death. Like it's presenting these things, right? Which obviously like as themselves are a part of bad taste.
Yes.
But there's this dichotomy of like that bad taste, but also being presented like with these beautiful like wide angle, highly formal, symmetrical shots. The like characters themselves, the fascists, the president, and like the Lord, and like all that stuff have like, they quote Baudelaire and they argue that it's like Baudelaire versus Nietzsche. They have like Picasso-esque cubist paintings on the wall. They like dress well. Like everybody has very nice Italian clothes, right?
Yes.
So this like question of like taste and how like taste bumps up against the sort of vile or the unspeakable, I guess.
Yes. Well, that, what I really noticed this time in the film was I finally understood, the staging of the rituals and the rites that they're, kind of constructing. And, what's really noticeable is that the various older women who are clearly lifelong prostitutes and, are now older women who, are kind of telling the stories of their experiences as young women and as prostitutes. Like they're dressed in these incredible like aristocratic clothing. The way that they tell the story is like everybody's like gathered around in these incredibly ornate rooms, of like old Italian aristocracy. And, again, the sense of like aesthetics and ritual. And, this is not as obscene as the film is, as difficult as it is, as much as it engages in what we would consider to be the very unspeakable reaches of like human desire, isn't really, it's not a film, I wouldn't call it a beautiful film. That doesn't seem like the appropriate word to use. But you're right that it is a film that, it doesn't abandon those questions. It stays close to the question of, because I think this film really is about ritual, right? Like I think it is thinking, there's that moment where they cite Sod, which is, I guess the film is based on the book, right?
Yeah.
Saying, that it's in the absence of religion, aka the death of God, right, that something like ritual within the domain of the erotic ends up like substituting religion's place in terms of, the symbolic or something like that. And the other thing, of course, that somehow the first time watching this film wasn't clear to me, but is much more clear to me now, that this is, of course, like a trenchant, unflinching critique of fascism.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
But I don't actually even begin to know how to articulate what the critique is.
Can we start with the first thing you said about ritual?
Yeah.
And then maybe try to get into the fascism stuff?
Yeah.
Because the substitution, right, this like atheist turn that like sexual ritual takes place, I think there's like some sort of relationship to like in the Jewish tradition, right? There's this whole like you can't see the face of God or you die.
Right.
There's this like ultimate otherness, and there's
Yes.
almost like an abjectness tied
Yes.
into that like
Yes.
leads to like destruction.
Yes.
Right? And that somehow I think is tied to
Yes.
how ritual is played out here.
Yes.
It's like the substitute for the ultimate abject.
Yes. Yes, because there's in the circle of shit, which is, the film is broken up into those three, right? Circle of obsession, circle of shit, and circle of blood.
Yeah.
Right? And the circle of shit, is where the practices of eating shit that is, showed to us on screen and also talked about in the story by the prostitute is consistently linked to death.
Yeah.
Right? And is consistently, talked about in the context of, men who are dying, wanting to see the ass of the girl, and then shitting, and then like dying with this, that somehow these two things are linked, right? The kind of the end or the destruction of subjecthood, and shit as death and defecation and the decay of life somehow get wound together. As again, if God is that which is unseeable or unrepresentable, in an atheist world, then obviously so too is death, or like death
Right.
becomes what God once was, which is, the unreachable,
Right.
Unrepresentable other.
Well, there's just sort of like, I mean, because like those things, right, by like turning into a symbol, whether it's like shit or like a word for it, like in religious sense, today would be like idols, there's an alienation involved there.
Yeah.
That like the like symbolic ritual takes place of like the thing itself,
Yes.
and it alienates the individual from
Yes.
like an authentic
Yes.
sort of
Yes.
encounter
Yes.
with like the thing itself.
Yes. And that of course is the great irony, and which is probably very difficult, LOL, to digest, is that for all its obscenity and its difficulty, here shit is always more than shit.
Yeah.
Right? It is, in other words, like, what's interesting about that entire section is that not even shit can be left to be shit.
Right.
Right? That, like, shit as the kind of that which is nothing without symbolic meaning, decay, disgust, like the final kind of limit, where that which means nothing, right, aka death, still can't be tolerated.
Right.
Shit still has to be
It
digested.
has to be a stand-in.
So it has to be a
Right.
stand-in, right? It has to be digested. It has to
Right.
be eaten. It has to be turned into ritual. It has to be turned into a mode of desire.
Right.
Like, even that which we, of course, would think as like beyond obscenity, the whole point here is that that too is being ritualized, right? Like that too
Right.
is being turned into something symbolic, into something masterable, as seemingly unmasterable in the scenes it seems. It's very difficult to watch, right? Like,
Yeah.
I find that to be one of the most disgusting parts of the film, because they do a really, really nice job, right?
Of, like, making it look real.
Really
Yeah.
making it look real. And of course we know, because this is the background of the film, that, it was chocolate cake that they were eating. And we were saying this when we were watching this, like, just remember this, chocolate cake is chocolate cake.
Right.
But, like, it doesn't work.
Right.
I don't find it, like, it doesn't work for me to remember that. Like, I find it makes me feel physically sick.
Yeah.
Watching it, like, physically sick. I feel like I'm going to throw up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And does that... So, like, I'm thinking of it, too, like, in relationship to, like Freud's ideas of, like, the death drive.
Yeah.
And sort of, like... So there's this thing that in the beginning of the film, right, everything is green and brown. Like, you have grass, and then you
Yeah.
have the brown of, like, buildings and the brown of dirt.
Yeah.
And then it's sort of subverted into the interiors into red and brown, which
Yes.
is really the only things, and like some neutrals, some whites
Yes.
and blacks that people are
Yeah.
wearing, but like all of the interiors are red and brown.
Yes.
And then green doesn't come back again until the wedding scene.
Right. Which is
So it's
life.
like bringing
Yeah.
in that sort of life
Mhm.
in it, right?
Mhm.
But this seems to be like, it's like they're reconstituting a sort of like legal, like ritualistic, like language that was meant in like the first place to sort of like protect life.
Yes.
And turning it, fascism maybe does this, right? Or not maybe. Fascism does this, is it sort of reconstitutes law, ritual, society to suddenly become a factory of death.
Yes.
And it reinterprets law, and it reinterprets the reason for things to produce death.
Yes.
Whereas like society as such, like we know it, has always produced like life. Right.
Though, I mean, arguably I would say that, you know, fascism also has the inverse of, you could kind of invert that and say, well, you know, because we see this in Leni Riefenstahl, for example, in Triumph of the Will, that, you know, fascism has a very particular attachment or investment in a notion of life. But it's life as, you know, and a friend of mine many, many years ago, I thought quite brilliantly defined fascism as the, you know, the desire for an unmediated totality, right? Which is, you know, this idea of a kind of communal ecstatic whole that would be like purely immanent and would be undifferentiated. And you see that in Triumph of the Will with these like ecstatic, you know, kind of orgiastic scenes of communal togetherness, right? Which seems also to be not about death, but about harnessing the erotics of politics into a kind of like thriving, like heaving, breathing whole, right?
Right, like a bacteria, like a single cell organism, sort of like created.
Exactly, like where community becomes its own like kind of like pulsating, you know, living thing that somehow is like generates its own power, electricity, right? And that really is part of the fascist desire. I think in many ways, which is like why, you know, and if you remember, we read Susan Sontag on fascism, and at the very, you know, the very famous essay, and at the very end of it, you know, she talks explicitly about the ways in which Nazi iconography has found its way into like gay and queer S&M stuff, you know, and I think that and I don't remember if she talks about Pasolini or not in that essay, but, you know, it's very clear in this film that, you know, Pasolini's trying to think the same thing, that, you know, what is the relationship between erotics and fascism, or between sexuality and political desire? Like, why does he bring these two things together, right? And I agree with you that it is obviously about a factory of death, we know that, but there is also something else in terms of erotics and life, right, that I think fascism is fundamentally bound up in.
Well, and it does a different thing, because I think of like leftist erotics, right, is very much tied up to like ideas of liberation and freedom and a lack of repression.
Yes, exactly.
Right, whereas like fascism sort of, it opens up, it sort of levels all actions to the same, so anything can go.
Yes.
But it doesn't function as like a freedom from repression, because it's like ritualized. It's still constrained within some sort of like form that
right.
It's not, because everything is permitted, that doesn't necessarily mean that anybody is liberated.
Correct. And then we see this in the rules that are created, right, for the fascist leaders, and then the kind of the teenagers or young adults that are kind of the objects or subjects of this torture, you know, they're forbidden from doing anything. And then what you see in the end is when various people are engaged in various things, holding onto a photograph, you know, a scene of lesbian desire, you know, the man and woman, you know, who are sleeping together at the end. And suddenly you realize, and, you know, the fascists realize, you know, their great mistake, which is like, you cannot master the body. You cannot master erotics, and you cannot master desire.
Which is why you have to destroy the body
at the end, or like, you know, this idea that even within the confines of their rules, within the confine of the levels of ritual that they had enacted, that something slipped through the cracks.
Right.
And that, I think, is always the ultimate lesson of desire, right? And so I think that that's, you know, very interesting and compelling in the film, you know. And the thing I noticed this time, too, and you can tell me if you saw this, is also like the small bits of intimacies in this film, you know, or that like that one kid who's like having a good time.
Yeah.
Right?
The curly-haired kid.
He
like loves everything.
He loves everything. And you're like, oh shit, he's a fascist, you know? And so he's like smiling. He's like, he responds to the kisses. He's like into he's into it.
Yeah.
And then you have this moment of, you know, not really knowing what to do with him.
Yep.
You know? The one who is not suffering at all and seems to be, you know, really just like having a great time.
Yeah, he's like a sadist and a masochist
at the same time. Yeah,
because they like, when they list off all the names, they like laugh and pat him on the at the end there.
Yeah.
So yeah, and you can track these like individuals, and you're like, wait, why is that guy like laughing again?
Yeah,
like,
why is he having a good time?
Yeah,
you know, like what's going on here? And then the other people who are clearly suffering enormously, or you know, the older women who are the prostitutes. You know, and I think that's quite a compelling critique, you know, as well from Pasolini of like, look, these women are completely fascist. Like they're, you know, they don't. There doesn't really seem to be a commentary in the film about whether men or women are worse.
Yeah.
You know, there really seems to be a uniform kind of blanket, you know, thinking about like, no, the women here are just as complicit. Like there's no, you know, if there is a critique of patriarchy here, I don't know where it is.
Yeah, I don't see it.
Yeah, I don't see
anywhere in it.
Unless it's precisely to say that the women here are as monstrous. You know?
Yeah. Can we talk about, and this is like kind of, a lot of the scenes I can think of, like the women are a part of this specifically, is like the role of laughter and humor in this film.
Yeah.
And I wrote down, like, where does the laughter come from? Because it's not joy or any sort of positive expression. Is it like cruelty? Is it sadism? Is it... And the humor, a lot of the jokes are like what we would call like anti-humor.
Right.
Like where the punchline is sort of like it's banal.
Right.
Like, where do you think like humor plays into this, and how do you think jokes and laughter functions in this film?
Yeah, that's a good question. I noticed it this time as well. I wrote it down. Like they kept making those weird, stupid jokes about, you know, that seem, I don't know if they're classic Italian jokes or not, but some sort of kind of, and it was clear that it wasn't about creating an effect of the laughter, but it was almost like, yeah, maybe, you know, there's something about the cruelty in the joke, right? It's not about the object of the joke being the cruel thing, right? Of like making fun of someone, or as we tend to think of when a joke is inappropriate, you know, that it makes light out of something that's not light. But there's more like, you know, something about, or maybe that is what it is, you know, it's about the kind of, you know, laughter that is in some senses, and jokes that are meaningless, right? That don't have a symbolic purpose or don't introduce freedom or introduce happiness, but it just seemed to be a kind of it's like an expression of power or something. I don't know. I don't really know how to think about it. That's maybe one of the more difficult parts of the film that I don't really have an answer to. I mean, do you have a sense of what the...
I don't know. I've always like been skeptical. I've always been skeptical in some ways of like humor being an oppositional act.
Right.
I think humor is like, a lot of people, I think, especially today, there's this sort of like, oh, I get my oppositionality from like edgy comics, or I get my oppositionality from making a mockery of people in power. And this is kind of where we come from. Where it's come from the beginning is like, how do you make a mockery of Trump when Trump's whole shtick is sort of mocking himself?
Right.
And he's like very self-conscious of the role he's playing, and he's self-conscious of like the joke that gets played when he says things.
Yeah.
Like he knows he's playing the buffoon at times, and he uses that, right? He uses like, because that in itself, he like generates his own humor that his followers enjoy.
Yes.
Right? And this is even like yesterday I was looking on Twitter, right? And I was like, I don't follow him, but like I was looking through it. But he calls Mike Bloomberg Mini Mike Bloomberg, which is hilarious, right? Like, but it's like not necessarily like mockery and making fun and like humor. I'm just skeptical of it as a sort of oppositional or radical form.
Yeah, and we talked about that in the class as well, right? Some of the films that used humor in order to bring, and you know, that of course has a long tradition, right? You go back to Chaplin, the great dictator, right? You know, trying to make fun of Hitler.
Right.
Though even Chaplin recognized that there was a limit to what humor could do. You know, famously he said that if he had known at the time about Auschwitz and the camps, he would not have made the film.
Yeah.
So I think that he understood that humor is not, it's not something that, there are places that humor cannot go.
Yeah.
And maybe, you know, there's an answer there to how humor works in Salo, because I think maybe it's connected to the end of it, after this torture scene that we're kind of subjected to, and then the two boys start dancing together. And I think it's something about humor or pleasure or these kind of ordinary things in the midst of, you know, something atrocious.
Right.
That in some ways makes the atrocious or unbearability of that torture really like inscribes it into something totally meaningless, right? It's like, yes, on the one hand, this torture is really ritualized, but on the other hand, maybe what we have here is a form of radical nihilism, right?
Yeah.
That the laughter in Salo is nihilistic, you know,
Yeah.
it's laughter that destroys, it's jokes that destroy, that believe in nothing, that, you know, and that know it, that, and this is maybe coming back, this is where laughter and jokes are about death, you know, and they know that, right? Giorgio Agamben has a thing in his book on Auschwitz where he talks about that some of the prisoners in the camp talked about how every Sunday there would be a soccer game between the SS and some of the prisoners. And I don't know if there's verification of this, but it's either Agamben or the person who's recounting this story that says that this little anecdote or this piece of information is what expresses the horror of Auschwitz most profoundly. And I was always struck by that because I thought, you know, aren't there ultimately more horrible or unthinkable things that happened there? And I think what the person was trying to say is that somehow the fact that what was going on in Auschwitz, that somehow you could also make pretensions to the ordinary, to the everyday, to the normal, in the midst of all of this, like, insanity, somehow, you know, was the most grotesque thing. And so, like, maybe this is what the laughter or humor in Salo is, too. It's like, it's this kind of, because jokes obey certain kinds of structures of language, certain codes of culture, and so they end up being, you know, it's like some insertion of that. I don't know, this is just speculative. But.
Right. Well, yeah, because jokes rely on norms that are subverted in order to produce humor.
Right.
Right? And so in a sort of space like that where the norms are so upside down and so backwards, to subvert them seems almost unthinkable.
Right.
To subvert it, you would almost think the opposite. You'd almost have to, like, right, because and this is like the oppositionality in this film, as far as like from the victims, are like usually these scenes when like girls hug each other when they're upset.
Yes.
Right? Like that is what we would call like good manners in our world, right? There is this form of like resistance. Resistance isn't even the right word because they're not really resisting, but do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
They're opposing something by like being kind to each other.
Yes.
Like it's like you know, there are these like midrash written about Sodom and Gomorrah, right? Where like the idea is like charity was outlawed, and if you like help someone, you would be like put to death.
Yes. Right.
So like, but the jokes are so like banal that they don't really. And maybe that's something to say about like what I'm saying about jokes is that like jokes and humor can laugh in that kind of world as long as they aren't actually attacking what is like what would be opposing it, which is like the jokes don't produce kindness. Right. They're just used as like a further sort of like another knife. Right. Yeah. Which in a lot of ways, like jokes even here where we like talk about like edgy comedians who just sort of like attempt to like push limits in a world that's already like grotesque.
Yeah.
Right? Like when you make like just off the top of my head, right? Like if you make like jokes about like Muslims or Arab people in a world where like what's happening in like Palestine is happening, or like what's happening in Syria or Yemen is happening, like it's almost like vile and cruel to try to like use that and like push some sort of limits when like those limits are being transgressed so horrifically somewhere else.
Right. And I think, you know, I mean, I'm really of two minds about this because I, on the one hand, see that critique. And there are jokes that I hear that I don't like to hear, you know, that I get very angry about and don't think things that I think are not funny. But on the other hand, you know, I'm always tempted to say like, you know, what is it in the nature of the joke? You know, in other words, if it is the case, or not if it is the case, so let's say you make a joke about something that is horrific, like, you know, a devastating refugee situation or a, you know, unthinkable war or something. It seems to me, you know, that there's something there to say, which is, you know, is it really the case that a joke, you know, even a one-line joke, introduces the possibility of not taking that thing seriously? In other words, what I'm saying is, what is it about how we understand what a joke is, vis-a-vis laughter, that makes us feel like making jokes about quote-unquote serious situations is morally bankrupt, right? So it's like there's some implicit understanding of what humor does and doesn't do in relation to politics and in relationship to seriousness, that I think, could be opened for question. Because this was Chaplin's response as well. Like, when people asked him, why did you make a film about Hitler? Like a funny film about Hitler. And he said, what are you talking about? I made it because Hitler should be laughed at. Mm-hmm. Right? That there was, for him, there was something in the risk of taking him seriously, right? Or, put differently, Chaplin took Hitler seriously, extremely seriously, by making a film about him that, opened him up to mockery. That was very important. But as you point out, that no longer works as a strategy.
No, because they open themselves up to mockery and indulge in that.
Right. So, and I think that's where the joke has the potential, right, for being actually quite transgressive and critical, that it's in fact in the content of the joke or in the mockery or in the humor that you might be able to deliver or bring people close to an understanding of how serious something is. And I'm not saying this as saying, okay, we should make jokes about shitty things.
Right.
I'm not saying that. But I am saying that, maybe Salo is in some ways opening up this question of like, what is the social role of a joke?
Yeah.
What is its relationship to the appropriate and the inappropriate? What is its relationship to good taste and bad taste? What is the limit of a joke?
Who is the audience?
Who is the audience, right? Who tells the joke, and what kind of position of power are they afforded or not afforded? What is the relationship to the joke to language, to representation? So I think that those are questions that I would want to ask. And we see this right now in humor with, you remember that one on Netflix, that famous Hannah Gadsby, right? Hannah Gadsby's whole, that really famous Netflix special where she basically, refutes the basic premise of comedy, which is to treat one's own life and one's own experience.
Oh, yeah. Nanette?
Right. Nanette, yeah,
right?
As the object of ridicule.
Right.
And I think a lot of people responded and felt a lot of, felt inspired by that. I was not personally convinced by that logic. I don't know why, but I think it's because I feel differently about the domain of comedy. But, okay, so I, following that or maybe related to that, I have questions about this film as well. One question about the film is, I guess, what it's saying about fascism, or what, like, one of the things I kept thinking is, this is Pasolini. Like, is Pasolini condemning or critiquing some of these, what would be S&M or BDSM practices? Like, put it in the youthful way, is he a kink shamer? And I'm like, this is Pasolini. Like, I don't think so, right? It doesn't seem like his MO. So, what does it mean that he's like connected fascism to these practices? Or, so like, how do we think about that in terms of this film? And the other thing that I would, kind of want to talk about is what I think is the film's kind of final metaphor, and how it introduces a kind of a reading of the audience, which is the guy in the chair with the binocular looking through, quote, the screen, seeing this thing of torture, which I think is really meant to be or could be an allegory for the cinema.
Well, and I think, so from the fascism point, and like, right to, like, Pasolini called himself a Catholic Marxist, right? Yeah. That's essentially his, like, political stance. He's a Marxist, he's Catholic. Like, he very much believed in, like, maintaining, like old pre-capitalist cultures, and like allowing that to preserve without being co-opted into this like unified whole of capital. So I think fascism in a lot of ways, and this is also like made again, like we said earlier, like after the Trilogy of Life, where he tried to sort of reinsert like joy and pleasure into worlds, pre-capitalist worlds, right? Like the Arabian Nights, the Canterbury Tales, the Decameron. We're talking about like 2 European and 1 Middle Eastern world that existed before capital, subsumed everything and everyone. So, and then those bodies, right, and that sort of style he cultivated there got subsumed by capital, and like snuff films were essentially made out of his like aesthetic. So I think the fascism he's explicitly combating here while he's using the location of Mussolini's like republic after he was kicked out of Rome, and he uses Desaad's like sort of formal story structure. I think the fascism he's fighting isn't that World War II fascism, but like the fascism of capital. And so I think it's positioned in like the modern day like capital, and he sees that sort of like what you were saying, this single blob, this like single cell organism that like produces its own electric impulsate as like the capitalist like apparatus itself, right? And BDSM, I think it's just a thing. Like BDSM is just a part of it, but like all things can become commodity under capital,
right? Like
all things, there isn't a single thing or lifestyle or like identity under capital that can like inherently in its own way be oppositional,
right?
Like everything can be both things. And so like to think of anything that's within the system itself as its potential liberation is ridiculous, because everything that's already in it is already subsumed by it,
right?
Which is why this important idea of like oppositional cinema as like utopia, like the like messianic potential is so important, because utopia and like the messianic are by definition that has which not come yet.
Exactly.
And so you must always make and must always think in terms of like trying to find what has not come.
Yes, exactly. And like making that legible if not visible, right? Like indexing it, inscribing it, like saying it is there.
Right.
We will gesture to it.
Right.
We will point to it. And it's like by pointing to it that we introduce an exit or the diachronic within the space of the synchronic, right? Which is the kind of the static, systematic whole, right, that we're trapped in, you know, and there's always this question of like, what is the future? Is there a future? How do we reach that exit, you know? And I think that's very important.
But that's like, I mean, that's like a part of capitalism itself, I think, is capitalism inherently attempts to create no future.
Exactly. No, totally.
Right?
Categorically. It invades the horizon.
Right. It attempts to like destroy that. But that's the beauty of like future itself always kind of appears out of nowhere.
Yes.
Like, and you know, the closest like thing we've had to this recently is like the sudden emergence of Bernie Sanders, which was like, there's no other word but sudden. Yeah. Right.
Which is like, Trump's emergence is identical.
As well. Exactly. Exactly. They both came completely out of nowhere and both suddenly offered alternatives that nobody was thought possible.
Yeah. And I always weirdly think that it is possible for Bernie Sanders to be president because Trump could be president. Yeah. That's kind of like my feeling, you know, although that's kind of like a different topic. Hashtag Bernie 2020. Yeah. So yeah, and then the other thing, you know, and I guess I have another like a follow-up question behind this other question. So this, you know, how to think about the conclusion, you know, where, you know, the guy's sitting in the chair, he's got the binoculars, he's looking through the window, and there's like this scene of torture that I think you find more difficult to watch than I do, though I also find it quite gross, you know. But, you know, because weirdly, torture bothers me a little bit less, though, like, it still bothers me. Yeah, but I have a hard time with the shit eating. Like, that's really a problematic one for me. But, like, and weirdly, somehow, the violence against women, even though it's, like, very clear in the film, you know, bothers me less, or there's something to say about that, which is part of my follow-up. But, you know, how to think about, you know, that thing at the end of the film where we are watching the torture scene out in the courtyard, where all these people are being like flayed and burned and like all this stuff is happening to them. But the guy is watching it through the binoculars, and like part of the, I think, implied pleasure of the sadism there is the voyeurism, right? It's not about being present. It's not about the doing of the torture. It's not about receiving the torture. It's about watching the torture from a distance and the pleasure of that voyeurism. And of course, everything's silent, right? Which is very interesting. You know, there's like no screaming. There's nothing. We watch it from a distance. And every time the second time I see that, I think, is this Pasolini in a weird way condemning us? Like, he's led us into a trap, right? He's showed us this film that is filled with just absolute grotesqueries. And we're sitting there and we're watching it, you know, like sheep let off the end of a cliff. And, you know, and then all of a sudden, you know, there's this guy in the chair, he's got his binoculars, he's looking through a screen, this screen of torture, and it's incredible pleasure, right? He's like excited about it. He's clearly a fascist. And I'm like, is this Pasolini like condemning us? Is he saying, you fools, you sat through this? Like, you know, is there a difference between us and the guy who's sitting in the chair? Is he reminding us of cinema's fascist potential? in that moment, that we can be captured by the image and what we're looking at, and that the pleasure of the voyeuristic sort of, event in cinema can lead us to accept, the most terrible things, like the way Triumph of the Will seduces us into fascism.
Well, not only pleasure, but just like any sort of reaction, disgust too.
Yes.
Like at the end of the day, a sort of like voyeurism, regardless of whatever the effect is on you, you're complicit in
yes.
It doesn't matter if you feel bad or feel good. To see it itself
yes.
is the problem.
Yes. And isn't that, I don't know if Pasolini would have been quite so on the nose about this, but, maybe he's saying also something about, what about bystanders to fascism, right?
Yeah.
What about, all of the people who maybe weren't SS and weren't Nazis, but, the everyday population of Germany that, knew or didn't know or sort of knew and, led millions of people to their death, right?
So I think the more you hear the history, they like knew.
Yes.
Like it was happening like in their towns.
In their towns that they could smell and and hear.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think people didn't know.
Yeah. And so I think so maybe there is something there. Pasolini is critiquing and condemning the position of the watcher, the bystander, voyeur.
Well, and we can say that even today. Like, why haven't 50,000 Americans stormed the cages at the border and liberated those families?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's, and it's absolutely true. Or like when the information came out about the NSA and, the amount of surveillance that the U.S. government, was engaging in vis-a-vis its citizens, I remember thinking, why is nobody outraged? Like, why is there not national protest?
Mm-hmm.
Like state, nationwide strikes. Like, why are people not upset? You know, and and of course, I'm not American, so I'm coming from a standpoint of also just like watching, the American kind of political imaginary and just always being amazed by what people accept and don't accept. But, I think, at least in the film, I think that's where Pasolini is opening us up to reminding us of the risk of, and I don't think he's being didactic. I don't think he's being like, don't stand by and let torture happen.
No.
That's not Pasolini, right?
Right.
He's not a moralist, which I really appreciate about him.
Right.
But, he is nonetheless opening up something around the question of power and vision in the cinema that I think is worth meditating on, And I guess, go ahead.
The idea of like seeing itself being a form of power is interesting.
Yes.
Because if you see, there's like implicit in that sort of structure, there's a distance.
Yes.
Right? If you're seeing, you're not a part of it.
Yes.
If you like are watching the videos of Yemen, that means you're not in Yemen.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
There's like you're being implicated in not only you watching it, but also you not being there.
Yes.
Yes.
Because I think there's also, this film has a certain helplessness in it where, I always think, like, why does nobody rebel? Like, why does nobody grab the gun?
I've seen the same fucking thing.
Why don't they shoot them in the back of their heads? Like, there's just something here about the total submission to what's going on, where I was like, there's more of them than there were of, like, sure, one has the guns, but it's like, it didn't seem to me like you couldn't kick the ass of these people pretty soundly, Well,
and there's this sort of, like, at the beginning, right, the whole thing of, like, you're here, like, to the world, you might as well be dead, nobody knows you're here, nobody will come try to save you, nobody will, like, hear your screams, like, you only exist here under our law now, right?
Yeah.
So...
Yeah.
And this is like literally the first thing they tell them as a group.
Yeah. And it's, I think that is also where I find this film so obscene, is in just like its absolute claustrophobic registry of power. Like it's, and the kinds of torture and infliction that's taking place, and we've talked about this, is that I chose not to put Salo on the syllabus. At the time I had not seen it, even though of course I knew its reputation very well. And I thought about it because I think, I didn't feel like there should be a limit of what one shows in a class like Oppositional Cinemas. But I'd had a colleague who had shown Salo in a different class. Maybe actually it was in Oppositional Cinemas a number of years prior to that. And people walked out.
Yeah.
And, I think I just didn't want to take the risk of this film in the classroom setting, because I think this is the kind of film that could very well upset people to the limit of, really protesting it or being upset that I subjected them to it.
And it would feel weird too, like both times I've seen this with you, right?
Yeah.
And we're like pretty good friends. But
Yeah.
like to think of seeing this in a room with 20 people where I'm not close to 15 of them, like I wonder how different that would have felt.
Yeah.
To be in the same room with people I don't really know.
Yeah.
Like seeing that.
Yeah. And I agree. I think that it's, even under the best circumstances, when, and we had a very good class.
Yeah.
We had a very good class, like really, really bright people. Like that's, in the 11 years I've been teaching, that was one of the best classes I've ever had in terms of how committed and interesting and smart people were in that class. I still think there was a limit. I do know of or have heard people who show very difficult films. But I think that it has to be within a particular context. And I think this film is very difficult. I mean, it's like it shows, it's like clear, repeated, endless scenes of, it's not extreme maybe as more contemporary films in their depiction of rape, but, people are raped, men and women in this film. There are accounts of, the prostitutes recounting, what we would now consider sexual assault or pedophilia. Like, it really is.
But it's presented also like the whole movie really is presented with the binoculars.
Yes.
Like it's from a distance. There's no close-ups of anything. Everything is like wide-angle lenses from a distance. Even like all of the stories, right? What's a story? It's a recounting. Yeah. It's already at a distance, right? You're not there.
No. Everything's represented. Everything is right. This is not cinema verite. This is not Dogma 95. This is not handheld, shaky shooting where you feel like you're gonna vomit because you're in the middle of something.
It's incredibly distant.
No,
it's like Hanukkah in some ways. Like yeah.
And I think for all of the things that it displays, it's not a very erotic film.
No.
Like it's not without that stuff. I mean, it has its moments, but when I'm watching it, I'm just like constantly dodging, it's either its attempts to try to seduce me or, I just like move from like small moments of you're like, oh, this is kind of sexy to then being like, now I'm horrified.
Yeah.
Like it's you're kind of constantly backed up against those two things in the film. But because it does everything from a distance, and in some ways it's so sterile. Like I do find the film in many ways sterile. Like when the fascists are like choosing the women and the men, and they're like standing there kind of half clothed.
There's no real texture.
There's no texture. No,
it's like a lot of like stone walls. Yeah, totally. Like the lighting is very like even and flat and unexpressive. There's nothing like there's no like water or smoke or fire. Like there's nothing in it that offers texture.
No.
Like it's a very like flat, sterile, cold. Like all the lighting, the lighting is like all in like sunlight, white light.
Yeah,
like there's nothing like yellow or like golden about it. Like
no. And I think it's all the same. I mean, the question becomes, like, is the film pornographic? And it would kind of depend on how we define that, right? And I think the answer is no. I mean, I think that the film does not, because the pornographic is about titillating you with the image. Right? And the argument is that the bulk of American cinema, regardless of whether it has sexual content or not, is pornographic.
Yeah.
Right? That like an action film is pornographic because it is about the image.
Even something like, like the jets flying over a football stadium before a game is pornographic. It's pornographic.
Or fascistic, even if you want to go down that line.
Yeah.
But it's, but I think this film very much resists that. Like it is not attempting to seduce you through the image, right? Or connect the content of the film to the image itself in terms of that. The image is not erotic in this film, I would argue, which is maybe its own anti-fascist gesture. But all the same, I mean, again, I don't think I would show this film in a class. I would not want to be responsible for the consequences of it.
Yeah, I know
because I think that it's, as much as I could stand in front of the class and be like, if you've seen Human Centipede, if you've seen Saw, if you like, that's all worse than this. But there is something about this film that I think is just too... And it is also, I think it's not even about, the erotics of the film. I think it's, it's in the banquet where they're eating shit or, like, it's that stuff that's very difficult in this film. So, that students, not everybody can or should watch this film, I would argue.
I would agree.
I also think that, I'm not sure I think it's a good film. Like, when I think about films, I'm like, oh, that film was brilliant, or that film is a masterpiece.
I couldn't give it a star rating.
No.
You know what I mean? That almost like in itself seems like not kosher. Like you just can't give it like something like that. You can't rate it on that.
Totally. It just feels like
way.
Yeah, Roger Ebert gives it 4 out of 5.
Yeah, it's
4 thumbs
like
up.
absurd.
3 thumbs up.
Yeah. 2 thumbs up.
2 thumbs up, yeah. So I feel, and that's what I mean by I feel like I don't have the language with which to talk about this film, other than to say that I'm very glad that I've seen it, and I'm very glad that I've seen it twice, because I really think it's in multiple viewings that you come to understand how a film works. It's also not my favorite by Pasolini, I would say.
Oh, no.
Not even close.
I honestly, for all of the like failures he saw in those films, I really enjoy the Trilogy of Life.
Yeah.
Like, I think those are like... Those films, after watching them, inspire me to, like, want to make something.
Yeah.
Like, those...
This doesn't inspire me.
No, this inspires me to, like, take a shower.
Yeah,
like,
no, this inspires me to... I don't know if... It does not inspire.
No,
it does
absolutely
not inspire.
not.
It's, it's very challenging. And I think, I guess, whoever your listeners are, if you're interested in this kind of cinema, it's worth watching. It's very famous. It's arguably one of the most famous films of all time.
Yeah.
As the booklet says, that this is a film that's talked about more than it's seen.
Mm-hmm.
And I do kind of believe it's important to see films that have this type of reputation. And interestingly, as we opened up this thing, Pasolini was murdered after this. We don't know for sure, right, whether he was murdered for this film or because of this film, or because he was gay,
because he was gay, or any other
of these things.
Reasons.
Yeah.
Or because he was a communist.
Yeah, probably all three.
We're gonna be honest,
But I think also this film does exist within. Oh, I just remembered something that I wrote down in my notes. There's something to say about this film in relationship to Nymphomaniac. Have you seen that film by Von Trier? Yeah.
Parts 1 and 2.
I've seen parts 1 and 2, and I think that in the storytelling between Stellan Skarsgård and what's her name, Charlotte Gainsbourg.
Yeah, the frames.
The frames, everything. I was like, there is a resonance between these two films.
Absolutely. That's so... I never thought about that.
There really
totally
is
right.
within the stories and the things that she's doing and all the different... There's something
She's
to
kind
say,
of performing a very similar...
similar thing.
In a weird way, though, because she's sort of coming from... Like... Because she's trying to... She's essentially trying to say she's, like, unredeemable. Right. And he's saying like anyone's redeemable, and she's like, well, let me count the ways in which I'm unredeemable.
Yeah. And then he turns out to be the one not redeemable.
Right.
Because he attempts to rape her, right? So I think there's something to say about the two films together. It might be interesting to read them together, in an essay I will never write. But maybe in the future. What else did I want to say about this? I had another line of thought in addition
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Kind of like circling back to this idea of oppositional cinema, and this film in a lot of ways is like also about power. And maybe this question is too broad or vague to be like answered like in this setting or whatever, but what is oppositional cinema's and oppositional filmmakers' relationship to power? Not just in being contra to power, but do they have is there a responsibility to wrestle power away instead of just go against it?
Right. Power away from what? Themselves? The film?
From who they're opposing.
Right. Well, I mean... Yeah, this is kind of coming back to the earlier questions, which is, what is the purpose or the goal of an oppositional film? In the case of Pasolini, when did he make this film? Like 57 or something like that?
This film? Yeah. Salo? Yeah. 75.
Oh, it's much later. I didn't realize it was so late. Okay, 1975. That's very interesting. Okay, so this is quite late, right? 1975. I mean, I think, a film like this, it's not going to have an effect on anything in the Italian past vis-a-vis fascism. But maybe it is a film that is committed to, as you say, critiquing capital, and about the question of the future, right? That it is a film that, meditates in 1975 on fascism for a reason. I really think it depends on the film. I think in some cases, oppositionality is urgent. I mean, in the case of, say, Palestinian filmmaking, oppositionality in those films are very urgent, right? It is about cinema being used to articulate and contest a situation of dominance and power that is taking place in the now.
Right.
And that is urgent. And that is a moment in which cinema has a real relationship, and the director has a real relationship to, if not wresting away power, at least opening up the possibility again of the otherwise, which here has very significant material concerns.
Right.
But there are other, in the context of American filmmaking, I would say, the obligation of an independent filmmaker, is to really think about the Hollywood apparatus, which is maybe a tired thing to have to think about. But you yourself think about this, like you want to be an independent filmmaker. You don't want to go to Hollywood and become a famous, Oscar-winning or, studio filmmaker that starts out by making commercials and then, is suddenly like hijacked to the whims of the studio, or to Netflix now or to Amazon or whoever's making things. I mean, it's not that it's not necessarily that you would say no to those opportunities, but you know what the risks are, what the stakes are there, right? That your voice will be hinged to something, and, so I think in some ways, American filmmakers or North American filmmakers have an obligation to think about that, or should think about that in their filmmaking of, if I'm not going to be a Hollywood filmmaker, if I'm not going to be a mainstream filmmaker, broadly defined, what kind of a filmmaker am I and why do I make cinema, But I think, sometimes for me, oppositionality, sometimes I think it's just interesting to play with form, like we were talking about Uncut Gems, and I don't think Uncut Gems has an explicit political message or political interest, but it is interested in form, and it is thinking about sensation and affect and all of these other things that I found very compelling, much more compelling than Parasite in some ways.
Well, maybe that's where like oppositionality, maybe that's where its future actually is, in like an aesthetic and a sort of like experiment with form that suddenly opens up something it never intended.
Yes, and actually I'm very interested in films that do things they don't mean.
Yeah.
And I think that is what I like, is when I go to see a film, even a mainstream film, and I'm like, wow, that film, like my favorite example of this is The Impossible with Ewan McGregor and, what's her name? Oh, God, Naomi Watts. And, it's a film that's like ostensibly about the tsunami, the Christmas or the Boxing Day tsunami, but is really, I think, elaborate meditation on edible dynamics in a family. And I will stand by that analysis. It's another essay I'm never going to write, but I really stand by this analysis. And I love that, right? Like, I love that cinema and, images always produce more than they mean. And like that's what makes them such cogent forms of representation. Like, that's why cinema has such a strong political power, not just because one can, quote, send a message with it.
Right.
But that images, as Godard always is fond of telling us, like, they always connect to other images and they always say more than they mean. And, especially within the domain of montage, like, you can say so much with the calculations or formula of montage. And
1 + 1 = 3.
1 + 1 = 3 is Godard's famous formulation, right? And so that's, where one image and a second image opens up a third concept, right? And I think that's, which is the dialectic, basically. But it's, that's amazing, right? And sometimes a film can do that when it doesn't know.
Yeah.
And I do like this idea of, oppositionality coming up in unexpected moments and small breaths of life in a film that might otherwise be completely contained or subsumed.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's enough for us to, like, have a better world, but does anybody really believe in revolution anymore? Do we really think that there's going to be some worldwide, like, radical change, like, that's going to change our conditions? I mean, maybe that's what we hang our hope on, is that there is still this possibility, even in the most contained film, of it always saying something otherwise. And I'm not a filmmaker, but I read and write about film, and I've, still after years have found so much more to say about things I've seen multiple times. So I guess that's where, like, my hope lies as a critic, and why I believe in criticism still, arguably. That criticism is not about explaining a film. It's not about driving a film to a final meaning or explanation, but about respecting and loving its richness and its fecundity, and to hope that you can still wrest from it more things than you saw last time. And that's what makes it generative. That's what that's what makes cinema the domain of the possible for me, is that you can always take more from it than you did. A good film, I think. And that can be defined in any ways, right? It doesn't have to be, what's the word I'm looking for? High cinema, high art.
Sure.
I feel like I suddenly went on this is how we're going to save the world.
Feels like a good place to end it.
Does it feel like a good place to end? I mean, do we think cinema can save the world? I don't think so.
Well, no. I wouldn't bank on it.
I wouldn't bank on it, but
keep on making it.
Keep on making it, you know. But, you know, I will say, somewhat cheesily, what a time to be alive, it's only 100... It's been just over 125 years since the invention of the cinema.
Yeah.
We are still in the midst of its adolescence,
and it's finally becoming democratized in a way that literature was for its entire... a lot of people are illiterate, so when people got more literate, right? But you don't have people like Woolf or Joyce coming until the novel was over 400 years old.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So who knows what cinema's potential
is. And I think we have to believe in that. I think we have to feel like there are still images to be made.
Yeah.
And maybe we don't need to go to outer space for them.
Yeah, maybe it can happen here.
Maybe it can. Maybe there are still images to be made. And, maybe we can even say it's still possible within American filmmaking. I mean, I think that has to be something that we, I think it will take, of course, new filmmakers, young filmmakers to be doing that. Especially because, our friend Godard probably doesn't have that many years left. Long live Godard. Arguably, as you know, I believe he's the greatest living filmmaker. Certainly the most important. But, yeah. Okay, we'll end on that very untrendy note to declare the greatest living filmmaker.
Long live cinema's dead. Long live Godard.
Exactly. Cinema is dead. Long live Godard. Oh my God, if he dies after this, I'm going to feel terrible.
That was good.